involved or not. Now, we're actually really excited about it. I don't always get to have one of the top leaders, the pillars of the Social Security sort of social insurance field megas on the show. And that's what we're going to be having tonight, which is just incredible. So before we get into that, I just want to give you a quick walkthrough as to all the details that are going to be happening today. It's just so cool. It's just such a huge, huge thing that I'm really excited about. First and foremost, we're going to be going through all the different types of Social Security benefits that are offered through the Social Security Administration. We're going to hit the meggies. There are some little ones that are, not on the list, but keep in mind, we have kind of a limited time and there are a ton of them. Now, directly after that, specifically, we're going to have a super mega person on here, Bill Arnone, basically National Academy of Social Insurance. He is the huge Washington, D.C. guest who's going to be giving us amazing information as to how he sees it, what's happening. And I'm going to be straight with you guys. I'm going to ask him the toughest questions that I can think of about this industry. Most of them have absolutely no answer available. They're like future thinking, what's going to happen? How are things working out? These are questions that I would ask myself in a deep, contemplative state where I'm trying to figure out, where is this thing going? What will happen? How will things, turn out? What will be added? What will be subtracted? These are the toughest questions I could possibly come up with. And you guys are going to get to see the top guy, the Washington, D.C. guy, actually answer them, which is just huge. All right, let's get right to it. Bottom line, here are those types of benefits that are available to people through Social Security, the administration. Let's go ahead and go right through this. I started off with the really easy one. Retirement benefits. Everybody knows that. We're going to get through it real quick because everybody's already on the ball. Everyone knows this one. 62 equals early retirement. 66, 67 equals full retirement. 70 equals max retirement. A lot of people don't know that you could actually go all the way up to 70 and get more per month. Now, it's a Title II benefit with around 50 million beneficiaries. So just to snapshot this thing, there are 335 million Americans based on the United Nations data, right? And that means there's around 15% of Americans are receiving retirement benefits. So it's a huge, widely used program. So 50 million against 335 million, okay? Now, this includes those people, Americans. Karen McDonald, thank you so much for the donation. I really, really appreciate it. So this includes basically those individuals who are in the country and also out of the country. Because remember, you can receive retirement benefits outside of the country. Now, let's get to number two, survivors insurance. This is probably the group of, and it's quite a few. There's quite a few programs inside the survivors program. This is probably one of the most misunderstood programs out of all of them. So let's go through it real quick. Survivors insurance, there's the first one. Okay. And remember, with these, the deceased, right? When we talk about like the person that passed away, they had to have qualified for Social Security benefits for you to be able to tap into essentially their benefits. So let's go right into it. Number one, widows benefits. That's where you're basically, 60 plus or married to a person who had their 40 quarters of coverage covered. So, they were, able to vest, they were able to go ahead and take. That person then dies, right? The person who worked there, a long part of their life, they pass away. Then what happens is, essentially the widow, so long as they're 60 plus years old, can tap into their ex-husband's ex-wife, their spouse's ex-spouse in their case, the widow, can tap into their benefits, which is just absolutely incredible and amazing because there's a lot of, especially women who didn't have a traditional work schedule or work over the table where they had to take care of their parents, where this program especially helps them out because when it comes to, monthly payments, everybody at least needs a baseline and this helps to boost them a little bit more. Now, next one, remarried widower benefits. So same sort of gig, 60 plus years old. Is the person that's receiving them. You're married to a person who died with 40 quarters of coverage and have since remarried or, essentially was able to, tap their benefits. Okay. Also with this one, you can't have planned with your new spouse to basically, maliciously murder your now past spouse. And I want to point that out here. There have been some really interesting cases where like with widows benefits, the spouse that's still alive actually murdered or was part of the murder that caused the death of that spouse that they're now taking the benefits from. In that case, you can't collect. Same thing with this remarried widower benefit situation. So let's kind of go through this a little bit more. Let me give you a hypothetical, an example as to how it works. That way you know how it works, okay? Let's say Ken is married to Karen, and Karen has just she just keeps bringing up the past and really puts, Ken through the ringer on these details. Well, Ken on a business trip meets Barbie. Oh, hey, Barbie. Oh, buddy. So Barbie is looking at getting a big diamond ring, right, to fit with her pink Corvette. Now, remember, these individuals are older, right? These individuals. Ken's got to be, 60 plus kind of gig. Okay. So Ken and Barbie come up with a plan to get rid of Karen. Karen dies from a mysterious plastic toy murder incident. Ken then marries Barbie. The Hot Fuzz finds out because Barbie squeaks info on what happened to Alejandro. Okay, now Alejandro is her side guy. Barbies always have a side guy. I'm just telling you how it is. Alejandro tells the police to get rid of Ken, and Ken is arrested for murder. Ken is now sad, mostly because he can't collect Karen's remarried widower's benefits, and basically because he's going to jail for murder. So that's an example of how it applies. All right, next one. Surviving divorced spouse. This, in my opinion, is the best of all of the benefits. I know I did a video on this. I think these are like, you kind of like luck out kind of gig with these. All right, so this is where a person who's a 60-pluser gets a divorce after 10 years of marriage, right? So you're married for 10 years or more. And then, basically you marry somebody else, but you still get to tap into the benefits of your ex-spouse. That's pretty cool stuff because, the ex-spouse, basically the original spouse, the one that you were originally married to, passes away. So put another way, let's say poor Barbie. Okay, let's go back to Barbie. We miss Barbie. Barbie's amazing. Poor Barbie is married to Alejandro. Okay, but after 10 years, you know what? Barbie realizes, she's now over 60. She realizes that Alejandro just isn't husband material. He's never been husband material. But that's okay. Some people aren't meant to be. He's more of that drinks too much, Friday night in the hot tub and can't find his wallet for Saturday night's date night dinner type of guy. That's who he is. He's a cool guy. He's a great guy. You want to have a beer with him? He's up. That's the guy. All right, cool. Now that's Sweetie in the background. She likes Alejandro. Now, Barbie is smart. So she introduces Alejandro to her friend, Lady Gaga, who's also friends with Sweetie, the barking dog in the background. Now, Lady Gaga, guess what? She hits it off with Alejandro. She is super into this guy. She is super excited about this person. So what happens is, Sweetie's getting excited about this Alejandro situation. Now, Barbie divorces Alejandro. And a year or so later, poor Alejandro gets attacked by sharks while surfing off the Hawaiian coast of Namaste. And I may have to go get Sweetie. Let me go get Sweetie real quick. Hold on, guys. Hold on one second. Sweetie, come here, baby. Come here. What's happening is Shadow has stolen a treat, and now she's unhappy because Shadow will not give her the treat. This little guy right here, this little guy right here, he tortures Sweetie by holding all the treats. He is what's called a treat hoarder. Adorable, but a monster, indeed. All right, now let's go back to this. So poor Alejandro. The dude's having a great time. He's surfing off of Hawaii on the Namaste beach. He's living the dream. Okay, we knew he was not husband material. Barbie stayed with him way too long. That's what happens. It's life. It's part of the gig. All right, now, Barbie divorces Alejandro because Alejandro is getting along with Lady Gaga, okay? And a year or so later, poor Alejandro gets attacked by sharks while surfing off the Hawaiian coast of Namaste. Guess what? Which is not a real place. Guess what? Barbie gets surviving divorced spouse benefits. Barbie's doing pretty good now. She's doing pretty good. Now, next one, disabled widow benefits. Again, disabled widow benefits. So this is like all the other widow-oriented benefits where they have the limitation where you need to be 60 years old to be able to take from the person who has now passed away. Except this one's got a cool caveat, a little side gig to it, okay? And that's where instead of having to be 60, if you're disabled, you can take earlier at 50 years old. So it's a really good gig. It basically gives you a 10-year earlier option if you're disabled. Cool. So if you're trying to be found disabled, your husband or your wife has passed, and you get found disabled at 52, then you can get disabled widow's benefits and not need to wait to 60. This is an awesome deal and usually very needed, especially for those obviously who are disabled. Now, there are young parent widows benefits. Now we're getting to kind of like I don't know that stuff existed. Young parent widows benefits. So if you are any age and you are taking care of, an under 18 child of the deceased, okay, or a disabled child between 18 to 22 of the deceased, then you can get a benefit. really cool thing here. Okay, so this is where you're basically a young parent who's essentially taking care of the child, and it doesn't always have to be necessarily like young in the traditional sense of you're a young parent, but the thing is, like, you got a young child or a disabled child between 18 and 22. Okay, so it doesn't actually, the young parent, I put that in there because people think of it as like, oh, they had a kid, the kid's young, the kid's, and under 18, and it's actually, application for 16 too. But anyways, next program, unmarried under 18 child benefit. You must be a natural or stepchild of the deceased parent that is under 18. Okay, so you're a kid, right? You're not married, right? You're basically under 18. And also, very important, you must be natural or stepchild of that parent. We usually call these auxiliary child benefits, and a child can actually tap into benefits in that instance when they're that young, because obviously they don't have money. They're not working under that age. Disabled adult child benefits. Now, this is a program that, in my opinion, is like one of the most underutilized programs that's out there. This is so absolutely crucial. And yet so many kids don't know how to tap into it. And the bottom line is this. All right, these are where an unmarried natural or stepchild between 18 and 22 is found disabled. And they get to add their deceased parents' benefits, a part of it, on top of their disability benefits. It's not a straight stacking gig, but you get to add some to increase your benefits up higher. Cool. Unmarried grandchild benefits, like nobody knows about these. So basically, these individuals need to meet the requirements of the child benefits, but the parents must be deceased, disabled, or meet the exceptions. And what this program is about is more so the parents pass away, and there's a problem where the child can't tap into traditional parent benefits as they should be able to, so they reach up a generation to the grandparent benefits. Okay, now, student auxiliary benefits. This is where a parent passes away and you are still in school, but over 18 and under 22. Actually, student auxiliary benefits is just DAC's. No, but that's what the student addition on top of it. So basically, they have this thing. A lot of these programs are like, you can get benefits up to 18 or 19, yada, yada. But with a lot of the Social Security system, you can actually, if you're still in like an academia program, and it usually goes up to 22, but you can usually go ahead and receive benefits so long as you're in that approved program, as a student. And the whole idea is that if you're in school, you should still be able to collect a monthly benefit while you're in school, because if you're in school, you're probably not working. Cool. There's even a child death parent benefit. So if you are the parent of a child who passed away and you are 60 plus years old and you were dependent on the child for half of your support during their death, right? Then you can, so just to summarize here, let's assume for one moment that basically you are essentially a mom or a dad of a child who passes away, and that child is older, and you're 60 plus at this point. Then you can, as a parent, collect on their benefit so long as essentially you were dependent on that child for half of your support. There's other little caveats and elements and things like that, but this is just a general overview video, giving you like the what exists out there. Now, but remember, if the child that died has a wife and kids, then your benefits as the parents, they may be more limited as a surviving parent, which means you don't get to, like they get to take some portion as well. It limits you as to what class you fit into. I think it's a class 1 for this one. Now, there's also a lump sum death benefit. There's hardly anybody that even knows about this one, which is what I think is so awesome about this show, is that we get to kind of like, put a spotlight. All right. This is where a surviving spouse or child may receive a $255 check. Some of the limitations are that the surviving spouse was living with the deceased worker when the worker died, and if they were living apart, the survivor can still get the benefit if they were already receiving benefits from the worker's records and or became eligible for benefits upon the worker's death. If there's no eligible surviving spouse, then the child may be eligible. It's a super small amount that they need to drastically increase, but I just wanted to make you aware of what's going on with that. So that way you have an understanding as to how that works. Now, let's keep rolling through this. We're getting close to the end. Then we're going to call Mr. Bill Arnone. So this is excellent. All right, disability insurance. Oh, now we're on where I live. Now we're in my house. This is good. We're on the good program now. All right, here we go. Disability insurance, type 2 benefit. All right, there's a lot of, I'm just going to read it and then I'm going to put it in English for you guys. All right, basically, if you have enough quarters of coverage and you're severely impaired, then you can go on this program, right? This is your classic disability program. Some things to remember, though, this is much harder to get onto than retirement because you need to have recent quarters of coverage. So you know how you need 40 quarters of coverage for retirement, but for this, you need a certain amount for your age, and usually 20 quarters of coverage within the past 10 years, unless you're like really young, unless you're under 20 years old. That's why they always ask you, actually, if you're under 30 years old as well, there's wiggle room there. This is why they always ask you, hey, have you been working within the past 5 years? This is because you can get 4 quarters of coverage per year. So you can get 4 QCs, 4 credits per year. So 5 times 4, right? So 5 years times 4, credits is 20 credits, 20 quarters of coverage, which is what you need within the past 10 years. And bam, you have enough quarters of coverage for this program. All right. That's the written whatever. Now let me explain from my perspective what Social Security disability insurance is. Social Security disability insurance is 2 elements: severely impaired, and you got to basically meet the quarters of coverage requirement. You got to be severely impaired. Either one impairment is super bad and meets a predetermined list of disabilities, or you could be extremely bad and meet a compassionate allowance listing. I don't know if you saw, but Commissioner Kijikazi just did a solid and added a bunch more to the list, which is awesome. She's been very on top of that, which is better than most of the commissioners we've had, frankly. Now, let's go over here. So you got your severely impaired, one impairment, you either meet a listed condition, all right? It's a predefined list. You either equal, exceed, you either, well, actually, there's 2 ways to look at this. You either have Supreme Court ruling on it, basically equivalency to that medical listing, or you basically are it. I'm trying not to use the statute language because it'll confuse you. You either are what that listing is, you're equivalent to it in like the level of severity, like you're not it, but you're similar to it, or you're worse than that. Okay, then you're worse than the listing that's actually on the listed impairments. So like if you look up the numbers, right, and you look up the FEVs, right, for like a breathing issue, like a COPD kind of gig, and your numbers are actually less than what they require, then you would meet, equal, exceed. In that case, you would essentially exceed the requirements of that listing, which is one of the ways you can be found disabled for one impairment. Now, if you have 2 or more impairments and one of your impairments does not meet that predefined list, that's okay. You could still get what's called a vocational allowance. A vocational allowance is like the totality of all of your impairments, limiting your ability to do an 8-hour job. So let me give you an example. You love to work, and by that, I mean you hate to work. So let's look at it from that perspective. You love to work, and as a result of that, you are trying to do a job, but the problem is you can't do it. You keep getting fired. You just get fired, you get fired, you get fired. Well, that's evidence to show that as you're doing these jobs, you have difficulty doing an 8-hour-a-day position in that type of industry. Now, the way they look at it is that there's these types of jobs. There's skilled jobs, there's semi-skilled jobs, and then there's unskilled jobs, okay? So you have rocket scientists, you have, there's so many. You could do like a lot of administrative function jobs are like in this semi-skilled area. And then down here, you have like, here's the shovel, there's the pile, here's the almonds, go blanchum, that kind of stuff. That's the unskilled area. And so what they do is they look at all these jobs in a big magical book. The big magical book is called the Dictionary of Occupational Titles. It's magic because it's no longer a book. Now it's digital. And as a result of that, they go into their special magical book and they look at all the jobs that are in there and they use a vocational expert with a special hat. I'm kidding, they have no hat. They use a vocational expert to look at it all. And then the judge will go, okay, I want to give you a hypothetical example of a person, which is you. They're talking about you. Could this person do the job if they were limited in this way, or that way, or this way, or that way? And the vocational expert goes into the computer. Spirit fingers up and down, got to do both ways. And they can't find a job, right, that you would fit into for an 8-hour workday. Then you'll be found disabled, which is a mas bueno for you. That's awesome. So that's essentially what happens if you have multiple impairments. One of them isn't severely, at that level of like the listed group, where they have that big list. Well, then they take all of them and they ask, could this person still do a job? And the 2 elements they use, element 4 and element 5. So 1, 2, 3, here we go, element 4, element 5. Can they do their past work within the past 15 years? And can they do basically other types of jobs, element 5, in the work environment, right? Can they do relevant transferable skill work, where they take skills from other things that you've done and apply them to other jobs? And they look at unskilled jobs. Could you do unskilled jobs? But what this all really comes down to is, could you do the most basic unskilled jobs in the work categories that they have to place you, which are sedentary, light, medium, heavy, and very heavy. All right, cool. Now, that is basically how they figure out if you are disabled. Medical severity, right? It's either one impairment or multiple impairments, and you have enough quarters of coverage, okay? That's how that works. All right, good. We're doing good. Now, let's get to spousal dependent benefits. These are available for people age 62 and older, or a worker child who is 16 and under. For the spouse, if you take these benefits early, you can get some pretty hefty penalties. So just be aware of the early retirement penalty with this particular program. Also, there are work restrictions with this program. The whole $2 if you earn $2 to take away $1 for every dollar you earn over $18,960. So go check out that. But be careful. That program has some bite to it. Hospital and medical insurance for the aged, disabled, and those with end-stage renal disease kind of fall into all of the Medicare details. Prescription drug benefit, you guys know what that equates to. And I'm just being quick now because we're kind of running out of time. I've got to check in with our guest. Extra help with Medicare prescription drug costs. Obviously, it's in the title. You guys know what that program is. Now, supplemental security income. A lot of people do not know the differences between disability, what they call our disability program, and supplemental security income. This is for people who paid into the system. This is for people who didn't pay into the system or didn't pay in enough. They're both disability programs. They both use the same standard of medical severity, okay? One isn't a crazy check and the other one's a physical check. No, that's incorrect. They are both the same severity standard for medical conditions, right? SSDI, disability, SSI, supplemental security income, same medical standard, okay? Magic fingers, very good. Now, with that said, SSI, you don't have to worry about quarters of coverage, right? So SSI, you just have to be poor and you have to basically be severely impaired. Those are the two requirements. And they have all these restrictions for how poor you have to be. You have to less than $2,000, in resources in the bank. You can only have one car for the most part. You can have an extra one, but there's restrictions. You can only have one dwelling that you're going to be living in, no like rental properties and such like that. You're restricted. You can't have a life insurance policy over $1,500. You're restricted as to what you can have. In fact, the most changes that need to happen across the board, I would say probably SSI. SSI, supplemental security income, when it comes to like the senators and the House reps sitting there typing out these bills, the most damage, or I guess improvement that they could do to knocking off the old system and creating a better one would be in the supplemental security income area. All right. Now, with that said, SSI, just as a note, is for essentially children and adults. Because remember, with children, here's the bottom line. With children, this is super important. They obviously haven't been working that much in America, right? Because we don't do it that way. If you go to China, different gig. But in America, they don't work that young. So as a result, SSI is also used as a disability program for children. Okay. Now, all right, next program, special veterans benefits. These are limited. So they got cut off basically around 2001. Let me go through them real quick. This is where from 1957 to 1977, you were actually credited, as a veteran, with $300 in additional earnings for each calendar quarter in which you received active duty basic pay. This helped because it got you more quarters of coverage and more money paid in for the 35-year averaging algorithm that the SSA uses to figure out how much they're going to give you for retirement. Bottom line, you got a boosted disability and retirement benefit as a result of this. Now, that was 57 through 77. If you lived and you basically did, your veterans work from 1978 to 2001, for every $300 in active duty basic pay, you were credited with an additional $100 in earnings up to a maximum of $1,200 a year. Now, in January of 2002, Public Law 107-117 was essentially a law that they came out with that said, no more soup for you, our veterans. And they stopped the special earnings credit program. Also, if you were enlisted after 1980, but before 2001, if you were enlisted before 1980, oh, hold on, I wrote it wrong. Bottom line is this. I don't know what I did there. Okay. If you didn't complete 24 months of active duty on your full tour, okay, essentially before that 2001 area, I'm not sure. I have to look at the dates on that and see what I wrote here, but I have 1980 and 2001, so maybe something pre-2001. You may not be able to receive the additional earnings. So the bottom line is they were looking for you to have completed at least 24 months of active duty or a full tour, and then you would be able to tap into essentially this wonderful special veterans benefits. It's a small number, but as a credit, it actually did boost you quite a bit and help you out for more quarters of coverage and a bigger monthly amount down the line. But then they cut it off. So, hey, thank you, government. All right. Unemployment insurance. A lot of people don't realize, God, we're going way over. I was supposed to call them 15 minutes ago. Now, unemployment insurance. This is just what we call the state-based unemployment or reemployment benefits, but it's actually set up and encompassed by the Social Security Administration as a Title III and IX program of the 1935 Social Security Act. So a lot of people think that unemployment is actually just the state thing. It's actually all under the umbrella of the feds when they put it in and required the states to start, utilizing, creating, and making this program available. Because let's call it like it is. You get fired, you needed a check. That's how it worked. All right. Public assistance and welfare services. I'm so over the time that I was supposed to do this, so I'm just going to zoom through these. Temporary assistance for needy families. You notice TAMP. Medical assistance, maternal and child health services, child support enforcement services, family and child welfare services, food stamps, energy assistance. Bottom line, guys, they have a website where you can go figure out what benefits are available to you. It's called benefits.gov. And for more information, just go there, click on the link. It's a yellow link, and you can kind of check it out and begin the process of going through it. My whole thing is this: a lot of people, and there's no statistic, by the way, there's no actual perfect statistic on how many people were supposed to get benefits and didn't get benefits. And as a result of that, the sad, tough thing about it is that we don't know how many people are really supposed to be getting extra widow's benefits or disabled child benefits or whatever. We just don't know. They've got programs now at the SSA that try and find these people and see what they're eligible for. And they put them in and it pops out. But we don't actually know, as a bottom line, how many people are really getting, missed, or they fall through the cracks and they don't get all the money that they're supposed to do. So the bottom line is, if you're like, my check is super bad, right? If you're getting like less than 841 on SSI, you should do a loan agreement. If you're in a situation where you're getting a very small amount of SSDI, or retirement, you should go ahead and file for SSI benefits to go ahead and boost it up if you're in an impoverished state, which if you're getting a really small amount of retirement, right, like $300 of retirement every month, you can get SSI to boost it. One thing that I didn't go into with this video that I should with another one is explaining how these programs interweave to create basically, and most of them are not stackable. You don't take, this one and put them on top of each other. They usually just boost each other. They give a little boop right there. Now, with that said, veterans benefits are stackable with your traditional, essentially disability benefits. So kind of the bottom line here, guys, is that maybe I need to do a video on it. I just rarely get any time to do anything anymore. But the bottom line is, because I'm always doing the 9-to-5 law firm stuff, which ends up going to 1 a.m., 2 a.m. But the bottom line is I'll try to create a video that talks about how all these programs assimilate, even though I missed a finger there, assimilate together to essentially allow you to boost your benefits to a higher amount. All right, so with that said, now we get to the part of the show that I'm really excited about. This is the part of the show where we get to get the Washington, D.C. social insurance person that knows this field super duper well. Let's go ahead and get him on the phone real quick. Hold on one moment, one sec. Let me get him over here. Hold on. Okay, good. Let me just get his number in there. And that looks right. All right, guys, we are officially reaching out. Here we go. Watch, he won't pick up. Watch.
Hello, Walter.
Oh, good, sir. How are you doing?
I have just witnessed your tour de force. What an extraordinary compilation of everything you need to know about social insurance in the United States. It's remarkable.
Thank you. Well, thank you, good sir. So I'm really excited about this. A lot of people don't know what all these programs are, how they work, things like that. You are the Washington, D.C. person. You are the CEO of the National Academy of Social Insurance. You're the guy. Can you tell me and tell everybody else, what is the National Academy of Social Insurance? What does it stand for? What does it do? How does it work?
Surely. We're an organization that I pride ourselves on being nonpartisan. We don't take positions. We actually believe in something that's rather rare in today's political environment, and that is evidence. So what we do is we study the basic social insurance programs that you've talked about and look at how they're performing, what are the gaps, what are the problems. We develop policy options. We don't endorse any. We just say, look, these are ways to address problems. And every one of these programs, Social Security, Medicare, unemployment insurance, workers' comp, they all have problems. Either they're not serving beneficiaries as well as they can, and you've outlined a lot of the areas that need improvement, or their funding is not adequate enough for the future. So we're really the group that tries to look at the facts and develop options, but not lobby, not advocate. We let others do that. One other thing is we're a membership organization. We are 1,200 members, and I need to get you into the academy, Walter.
Yeah.
You established in 30 minutes, and you know about as much as anyone I know about these programs. So we have to make that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, now I've told people in preparation for this day, and everybody knows I'm really excited about it. And the people I've been working with know that I'm very jealous about having your time on the show. Like, I'm super excited about it. But I also told everybody, look, I'm going to ask you the toughest questions that I can possibly come up with that even I struggle with on a daily basis and that I have not been able to find reasonable answers to. Are you ready, good sir, for some of these tough questions?
Oh, yes. No, I'm eager to do that. Absolutely.
Perfect. All right, good sir.
But I reserve the right to punt on some of them.
That's good. That's good. We should always have waivers as attorneys. That's good. All right. So here's the first question. Germany, 1889, just setting the stage, back in the day, started the old age retirement-esque social insurance program. They were the original group to say we need something like this. And like America does, and in my opinion should continue to do, we stole their idea. We stole it right from them and made it our own. What other social insurance programs exist in other countries beyond disability, Medicare, retirement that we should consider adding to our American roster?
I think the one, Walter, that stands out, and we are the laggard in the world, and that's what we call universal family care.
Yeah.
It includes things like paid family leave. It includes long-term service and supports. Other countries devote much more of their gross domestic product to programs like this. And all we do in the United States when it comes to, say, family leave is, oh, you can take time off, but you're not going to be paid for it. No other country leaves it as unpaid. So to me, that's the lesson we can learn. There's a vast body of knowledge of different countries that are doing this and doing it very well. And there, the United States is a laggard. Any study will show that we're way behind when it comes to universal family care.
What are some of the first steps that we can do about getting people educated about what family care should be, what it should encompass? How do we protect families better when it comes to Congress?
Well, it always does come down to what is Congress willing to spend money on. That's always the starting point. People who would like to know what we think the landscape of universal family care is, go on our website, nasi.org. We have a whole section on it. We did a massive report a few years ago. I will warn people, the report's a bit dense. We try to do our best to translate. You do a masterful job of translating things into understandable English. But you can register, you can be kept up to date. We try to monitor what states are doing. We've got a handful of states that are doing this without waiting for the federal government. But a real solution needs to be a national solution. And to do that, you need both houses, Congress, and the executive branch to support it. And therein is the dilemma on all these programs, getting bipartisan agreements.
So now I've got a really tough question for you. This is a question I was sitting there. I've sat many times. I was even up on the farm, sitting there on a bench, just thinking about this. And it's something that's so crucial and important to me. Here's the tough question. Space travel is around the corner. So what type of social insurance programs will we need for space travel that no one is thinking about?
Well, that is a question. I've gotten lots of questions in my life. No one has ever asked that question. So you're breaking new ground here.
Good.
I'm a child of the 60s. I remember President Kennedy giving a speech saying we're going to send someone to the moon by the end of this decade. And a lot of us said, boy, what's he been drinking? What's he been smoking? And we did it, right? And so now we're on the verge of a new space frontier. So I went in preparation, looked at the things that happen in space, and they all cry out for disability protection.
Yeah.
The air in a capsule, the long time spent, it's a considered a relatively hostile environment, being away from home, the stress that occurs. So my sense is there'll be a need for a new definition of health protection for people who take the travel and spend the time in a space vehicle. And then if they're doing it for work, it's a whole new dimension for workers' compensation, right?
Exactly.
What could happen in that space vehicle that can cause you to have an injury, and how do we cover that? How do we define it? It opens up a whole host of issues that we're not prepared to handle these problems on Earth. I don't know how we're going to do them in space, but we have to start thinking about them because, as you say, it's around the corner.
I'm so excited you brought that up because I've been thinking about disability, how it applies to space. I mean, just the theory of radiation coming off of the sun and not being protected, or new types of diseases, bacteria, funguses, etc., that we could interact with. I mean, we send crews down to the deep ocean and they dig up things, and as a result of that, sometimes they come across something that we haven't studied or interacted with yet. And then all of a sudden, we don't have a process that is, medically able to treat them. And then we have to throw them into the disability program and see how it works for them. But for space, we don't have that pre-set up system that I think is going to be as outlined as it needs to be. And I think even beyond disability, there's certain things that people are going to need when they go into space. A social program for basically, internet that's provided, because that's all communication related. Interactions. How do they get off of that space station or that space planet, a communication with other people, or perhaps, some sort of social program for electricity? Is somebody sitting in their little space home paying an electric bill, or is that, funded by the nation on Earth, or how does that work? And, it's weird little things like, are there going to be electric poles in space? Well, no. I mean, a lot of this is going to be technology, hopefully with solar panels and being able to convert things that are in the air, etc. Or maybe cold fusion, like thermostat-sized cold fusion would be incredible. But if that exists and people can't afford one of those, what is the social insurance program in place to allow a community to, group together and purchase, or maybe be provided at a discount? That's just been such a big thing. Before I get to my next question, if I send you a bunch of ideas, will you take a look at it and give me some commentary back on it? Because I'm super jazzed about this question.
Absolutely. And I hope there are people in this government who are doing what you're doing, asking these questions, anticipating. The problem, we've been very reactive as a nation. We wait till there's a crisis like COVID-19, and then we say, oh, well, now we have to start responding. We should be thinking of these ahead of the game. And you've raised the whole host. The essence of social insurance is to take risks that none of us can protect ourselves against alone, pool them, and provide the funding and the support. But risks change constantly. You open the door to a whole set of new unanticipated risks. We've got to start looking at them, and now is the time before people are in those vehicles and start letting us know. And by the way, it's not just the physical, it's the mental health aspect as well. The stress, the confinement, what effects is it going to have on the brain? So it's a whole host of things that a social insurance approach will be vitally needed.
So the next big question I have for you, so the retirement program, it falls within what I call the 3 Bs. It's big, it's beloved, and it's completely underfunded. And beyond bringing the DI trust fund into the retirement trust fund, or increasing the retirement age, increasing taxes, very unpopular things, is there a way to fix this underfunded program that most of us aren't seeing right now in the news or in any of the chambers of Congress? What options are there? How do we fix this?
Well, once again, we have a whole list of options on our website, but I want to focus on one that is elegantly simple. I think it could get bipartisan support. We could borrow it from other countries that you mentioned. Canada does this, Sweden does it. Here's the idea. The trust funds are projected to be depleted, Social Security trust funds in particular, which is old age, survivors, and disability insurance, around 2034. Now, first reaction would be, boy, that's a long way off. We don't have to deal with it now. The longer we wait, the harder it gets. Here's what some countries do. They take a point where there is a red zone for funding. You don't want to wait till it gets to zero. But when it gets to a certain point, they trigger an automatic adjustment in what we pay into the program, FICA. And we've outlined how this could work. We don't, again, advocate for it. We just want people to look at it, because if we think this is the answer, Congress will vote once and for all, to solve Social Security's financing, and they never have to vote again, because there'll be an automatic trigger that says, as the trust funds decline, we'll all take an increase in the FICA rate. And oh, by the way, as the trust funds get better, our FICA rate will go down. So it's not inevitably a payroll tax increase, although I don't like to call FICA payroll tax. It's not based on my payroll. Individuals don't have payrolls, employers do. And I don't like to call it a tax. It's really a contribution. But this is a very easy to understand, simple, and I think open to bipartisan support. So we're going to be promoting it, again, not advocating for it, but getting out there. Let's talk about it. Because to me, it's one of those unusual policy options that actually will solve the problem. Not just for me, I'm a boomer, you're Generation X, I gather. Millennials and Generation Z, they're the ones who need a solution more than any of us, because it's their future.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at this thing and I look at, so I was talking to some of my buddies, and I'm 1986, so I'm like right on the millennial-esque beginning kind of spiel, and when I was talking to them, none of my friends, even fellow attorneys that came from my graduating class, at Barry Law, they didn't really know what social insurance was, what was available to them, and these are practicing attorneys who have been practicing now for 70 years. So from my perspective, what I think is incredibly important is that we need to first get education as to what programs exist, what programs could exist, and why they're relevant to the future of the human being. And I think one of the negatives we face is that the economy, it goes up, it goes down, but people are so focused on this identity of the now. And what I'm worried about is that the identity of the now has been even more so just pushing and pushing and pushing into the brains of the younger children that are out there as to what can I buy now to feel special and feel good, as opposed to what can I have in the future to make sure that I'm safe, that I'm okay, etc. And I think one of the scary parts of it is, like, take, for example, myself. I had over $500,000 in student loans, and my usual bill per month is a little bit over $1,800, but it's lower right now because of the whole COVID situation. But because of that, the ability to save and prepare has been hindered. And I look at this myself as kind of like a failed version of capitalism, in that capitalism is this idea of competing interests to go ahead and make a better product, a cheaper product, etc. And then I just can't partake in it the same way because my education was so, cost heavy. And as a result of that, I'm pulled away from my preparation of being an individual who wants to prepare for the future, wants to put away for the future, and things like that. One of the things I do is I kind of rebuild, vintage boats. And, if I ever get into a real bad slam, I can sell them. And that's like my put away money. That's because I don't make that much. So as a result, what are your thoughts with essentially, students, high student loans, trying to look at this a different way, plan for the future, and invest more into their future? How do you think we can get people more on board with the idea of future thinking as opposed to just right now survival thinking?
Well, every generation, I think, is focused on the now. It's just a natural part of how we age. So if you're talking to people in their 30s and you use the word retirement, they'll look at you as though you're in a different world. They don't think about retirement. They think about the here and now. So, for example, I know a lot of people, they get their first job. They get their first paycheck. The first paycheck is usually a paper check, and everything else is electronic. They get the first paycheck, and they see the four letters, FICA.
Yeah.
And you know what they say? What the FICA?
Yeah.
What is this? I never chose this. It's compulsory, right?
Right.
And in a way, it sounds like Big Brother. It's the government protecting you against yourself, because everyone would say, I'd rather have a 6.2% raise and let me take care of myself. And that's natural. They don't look at what they're going to do with that 6.2%. Are they really going to put it away for retirement? Or are they going to say, well, that boat that Walter has for sale, well, I'd like to buy that boat. I'll deal with retirement later. So programs like social insurance, they really do protect us against ourselves. And then you look back 40, 50 years later and you go, wow, thank God for those 4 letters that came out of my pay. But every generation has to reaffirm its faith in programs like this. And I'm worried that if there were a national referendum of millennials and Generation Z, and they were asked, would you like that, take your money now and not pay into Social Security? I would dare say 70, 75% would say, where do I sign? I want to make that deal. And I think we always have to be vigilant about that.
I think one of the things that scares me about the identity here, and I don't want to get into politics, but there was the promotion of the idea of essentially privatizing the whole program, which is just not going to work. It has to be government backed, has to be government funded, has to be government, oversight, all that stuff. And what scares me about this identity is that, people, they look at this and they say, financially, I'm paying in this much, but I'm only getting this much. And I think that, we expect to get more return, but there's zero education out there in our academia institutions, in high school, middle school, lower school, that I've seen or even I participated in, that essentially tells people all the different benefits and options that other people in your life can tap into as a result of you paying in. And one of the things I think that's a problem is that there's a web, and nobody really gets the web. And I think the Social Security Administration is doing a great job, Commissioner Kijikazi, because they got the new programs in, they're spotting people left and right. There was a time when I was practicing with the other law firms, and even the beginning of my law firm, where we were, the attorneys, we had to figure out whether or not this person was going to fit into another program. And we had to make sure we had the SSA 4 form and the SSA, this form or that form, whatever, to make sure that we filed them correctly for the auxiliary programs that they potentially go into, because otherwise it just wouldn't happen. So I'm excited about that. How do we get this in school so that kids understand what the Social Security Administration offers? How do we get them to understand the web so that's not just they're paying in for themselves, but their kids, their grandchildren, their widows, etc.? How do we do that?
This is a real challenge because people do not learn about these early enough. Ideally, they would start learning, as you say, in high school. We have interns each summer, and they've all gone through public policy courses, history courses, college and graduate school level. I asked them, how much did you learn about Social Security? And the answer is nothing.
Yeah.
Not even at that level was it taught. So there's a huge gap in how we teach people. But I want to go back to the premise of your question, and that is people often look at this as, will I get my money's worth? If I put in 6.2%, will I end up getting back at least as much as I put in? The problem with that thinking is it focuses just on the retirement benefit. People don't put a value on the disability insurance protection, the life insurance protection. The Social Security Administration used to send out benefit statements, and it used to quantify the value of the disability and life insurance benefit. They stopped doing that. And to me, that was a missed opportunity. Everybody would get it every year. Now you have to ask for it, and it doesn't include, other than the retirement benefit, it doesn't quantify the life insurance and disability benefit. So we're missing educational moments when people would say, oh, I get it now. It is more protection than I ever thought. They just have to watch your 25, 30-minute video, and they would say, my goodness, I had no idea it was all these different programs. And I can identify with them. Now, let's face it, most people, do they want to identify with disability protection? The answer is no, right? Not me. I'm invincible. I'll never need disability protection. Well, it's there because on your own, you wouldn't buy a disability insurance policy. I don't know anybody who would. That's
True.
What it's there for, to do for you what on your own you're not likely to do.
That hits so home for me because, I'm doing all this farm activity, and people get to see me on the Marble Mountain Horse Estate farm, restoring it. We're about to have a trainer potentially. There's a couple of trainers that are bidding for it, but one of them is going to win to rent the facility and everything. And, I'm working with spinning blades. I'm working with, vintage, vintage, extremely dangerous tractors, all of these things. And I just got a notification from my insurance that my insurance is now going up to $600 per month. And that doesn't include the dental on top of that. And so the thing that I looked at, my first thought in my brain was, A, how dare they? B, don't they know that I don't make that much money? And C, how do I switch to something else? and where I don't have as good of benefits. I don't have as good as that. And what I decided was, here we go. It's millennial, even though I have the knowledge base, what I decided was once I'm done doing the most dangerous work, restoring essentially the farm, I'm going to have to switch to a cheaper insurance program, a cheaper insurance alternative. Because even though I like really having incredible health insurance, it's just gotten to the point where it's so expensive that I just can't cover that basis with the economy changing and everything that's going on. So I guess from my perspective, the way I look at it is it's a risk assessment where I know I'm going to be in a very dangerous situation. But if you compare that to modern day America, where there's shootings and kind of these aggressive fights, they even have YouTube channels that are just devoted to, before they get kicked off YouTube, where people are just walking up and hitting other people and beating up other people. And then of course you have the sanctioned ones, which like street beefs and stuff like that, where they're fighting each other and they're basically getting into these combative arenas as untrained boxers in a backyard. I guess my point to you is, the way I see it, people are seeking extra money and the jobs are getting more dangerous. And society seems to be having more issues as well with danger. How will that affect essentially Social Security benefits as time goes on, with society basically becoming more likely that somebody will get injured?
I think you nailed it. The risks of that go up every day. And again, I want to emphasize this: physical or mental. There's a concept now called social anxiety, which is rampant. Sometimes we pose it as just an issue for younger people. It's all of us. We're feeling it. And you don't know what the impact is. Look at COVID-19. We haven't begun to look at the impact of long COVID. It could be devastating to disability programs. You saw the report that came out this week. Life expectancy in the United States is going down. We are the only country in the world that can claim that remarkable development, right? So uncertainty is probably the number one issue right now. People don't know what to expect. They don't know what the rules are. We did a report on economic security. 1 out of 3 Americans is economically insecure. That's the same percentage as it was in 1935 when Roosevelt signed the Social Security Act. He goes, we're 1/3 of a nation, 1/3 ill-fed, 1/3 ill-clad, 1/3 ill-housed. 87 years later, and we're still at that same 1/3. When you think about it, it's unfathomable that we would let this happen. But what I often tell people is, you might feel you're a winner today, you're doing everything right. If we have social turmoil, which is more of a risk than ever, you're going to enjoy your wealth, you think? I don't think so, right? So we have to look at that. We're all in this together. If some lose big time, they're not going to be happy, and that could be a risk to all of us. I'd like to think we do this for moral reasons, but it really is self-interest that should underlie what we do as a nation when it comes to social insurance. We really are all in this together.
That's an excellent answer. And I don't know, a lot of people don't realize. And guys, if you do get a chance to go check out specifically, go ahead and walk me through, when you go to the website and people access it, how do they get to the website? How do they get to the articles? Walk me through it.
Sure. You go on nasi.org. The first thing I'm going to tell you to do is, we'll ask you, would you like to register and get our constant emails? We don't sell anything. You don't have to worry that, oh my God, I'm going to get offers for this or that. That's the first thing you should do. And then go on the latest thinking page, and that will show you the things we've done recently to focus on issues that people are concerned about. You'll hear about our current perspective on Social Security, what we've done with economic security, universal family care. It's all there. You can search by topic. If you want to know more about who we are, there's an about page. You can look at our board of directors, a list of our members, our staff. We're very transparent. And again, we're not there to sell anything other than knowledge, which to me is an invaluable thing to have, and you don't have to pay for it. It's all there.
Now, I want to ask you a toughie question here, and I've actually got another question, a big question that I've been sitting here thinking about. I think it's incredibly important. I want to throw it your way. So here's a question that I think is incredibly important for me to ask you because of your background, your knowledge, your experience. Since you are a parent of social insurance in America, since you are a shepherd of it, a guiding factor for it, I'm going to make you choose between your children as to which social program you like the most. Which is your favorite social insurance program in America, and what is your favorite fact about it?
Well, clearly for me, it's Social Security. It's the one I first got exposed to. Believe it or not, my first executive job, I ran a senior citizen center in a place called the Bronx in New York. And it was a center in a community that used to be middle class. And when people retired, they plunged into poverty. And I felt it firsthand. And I said, wow, we have to do something about this. It was the year 1974 when a program you've talked about was introduced, Supplemental Security Income. And it was meant to say, if life has not treated you well and you didn't earn enough or work long enough to get a good Social Security benefit, SSI will supplement that and get you up to a level where you're not poor. That was the premise. Did it achieve that objective? Absolutely not. For many reasons, not the least of which was people would go to apply and they would come back to me in my office and say, hey, Mr. Arnone, you said this was part of Social Security. It's a welfare program. I had to show them what's in my bank account, what my living arrangements are, what stocks and bonds I don't have. That's not Social Security. That invaded my privacy. And that's the problem with programs like SSI. And by the way, I'm a big champion of SSI. I wish it were improved the way you indicated, but it is what's called a means-tested program. And the old saying is, means-tested programs are mean because of what you've got to do to be able to get a benefit. So I say Social Security is the one, to me, it's the crown jewel. It was the one that got us toward a social insurance path, and it's the key program. And many people don't realize, I'm so glad you talked about the benefits for children. 3 million Social Security beneficiaries are under age 18. And another 3 million live in households where one person at least gets a benefit. And you know, if it's grandma, grandpa, what do they do with that benefit? They give a lot of it to their grandchildren. True. Or parents give it to their kids. So I like Social Security to be known as a family protection program. It's not just, and I don't say the word just, it's not only for old people. It's really for people of all ages, and children especially get tremendous value if they're getting a Social Security benefit.
That's excellent. And that's when I look at, and I've only recently started getting into international topics of study for which countries have which programs, how they evolved, things like that. Because for me, it's just such an incredible history because you can gauge histories, how they evolve, how moral they become based upon what programs they put in place to essentially help their citizens, get through life, have a better life, etc. And I think one of the amazing things is that everybody is getting access to the internet in some way, fashion, or form, whether it's, Elon's internet or they're getting some, computer handed to them through some program, but everybody's getting some form of the internet somewhere. And what I just love about it is that all of these other individuals that aren't restricted. I mean, some of these countries restrict how they can search, what they can search, et cetera. But all these other individuals that are able to tap into information about programs, they're sitting there wondering, why does their country not offer it? And that's the youth that are going to change all of these potential countries that limit the lifestyle of those citizens that they claim to want to protect and help and increase the standard of living for. And so I think this is incredible. And what you guys do is just absolutely amazing. You guys literally put pen to paper on the facts, which you don't see a lot of that, especially for social insurance, because to be fair, a lot of emotion goes into this. Now, with that said, I've got a real toughie question. It's a question, as you know, we always have like a security expert coming on Thursday nights to go ahead and give an update. My question to you is, if there were, and I hope there won't be, but I've seen things where there's certain nations, island nations over by China, one of them off kind of the coast of Australia is now not interacting with the US anymore like they were expecting to when one of the ships needed to refuel. If there were to be, and this is something I don't know enough about, but if there were to be a World War III, some sort of major engagement in battle, whether it be a digital, a digital invasion type battle or a physical. What would happen to Social Security benefits, social insurance programs in a World War III scenario?
Well, the example we have now is Ukraine. They're in a war. They view it, they don't care whether we call it a world war or not. If you're in the Ukraine, it's a war. They're getting checks to all their people. If they can do it, we can do it.
Yeah.
Now, granted, a nuclear war would be a very different situation. Because I've heard people say, if we're going to have a nuclear war, I hope I'm one of the first to go. I don't want to be a survivor. It's going to be unimaginable. But if during a war, if Ukraine can get checks into the hands of people during bomb shells hitting them, we should be able to do it. But it takes planning, and we're not really good as a country at planning. We have a COVID-19 task force. It's asking the question, how will we learn from COVID and respond more proactively in anticipation of the next big thing? We don't know what it is. It could be a war, could be a cybersecurity attack, could be a climate disaster. Who knows? Another pandemic. Let's learn what we didn't do well and make sure we don't repeat it. So that's a task force that will be issuing its report. And I'm very excited because it's more futuristic, which I think, like you, we love to think about the what ifs. We don't look at things as they are and say why. We look at things that aren't and say why not. I think that's a great way to look at life. That's what we're trying to do. Get ahead of the curve once and for all and not respond to the crisis after the fact.
Now, I saw you recently on TV and I loved it. I thought it was amazing. I thought it was very detail oriented. I was very, very happy with the questions that were asked. Can you tell me what TV show did you go on? And also, can you walk me through, and I saw the article thereafter, can you tell me about the bullet points on policy that you were basically showing as an option? Walk me through it because that was amazing.
Yeah, the show was C-SPAN. They have a Washington Journal, so it was early Saturday morning. I must tell you, I was nervous because it's a live call-in show, and that has a lot of risk, as you might expect. But they really covered the Social Security waterfront. We didn't talk about anything else. There were a couple of questions about Medicare, but it was really about Social Security. And again, we don't have anything we are advocating for, but we have a whole list of options on our website. Things like Social Security used to have a minimum benefit. No matter how little you worked, you would have a floor below which you wouldn't go. That's gone. It withered away. Why? Why have we let it disappear when it's needed more than ever today? Social Security's FICA, the 6.2%, you pay it up to $147,000, and then you stop paying. Well, what does that mean? It means people who are among the wealthiest in the country pay into it as little as the rest of us. Well, that seems like it's taxation in reverse, right? So why is there not a complete elimination of the cap on wages so we're all paying the dollars at 6.2 on all of our wages? Another proposal is to look at the cost of living adjustment, the way it's calculated based on the consumer price index for working people. Isn't it time for a consumer price index that reflects how Social Security beneficiaries spend their money? And generally speaking, it'll probably be a higher inflation rate than it is for the rest of us. So these are the types of policy options. Again, we don't advocate, we lay them out there, we analyze who would win, who wouldn't win, what would it cost. There's no shortage of things we can do. But the beauty of this is not that difficult. It's manageable. Medicare, on the other hand, is a whole different story. And I know we're not focusing on that here. Social Security, we can put together a package that solves the problem for the rest of our lives. It's doable. We have to do it. And unfortunately, the political courage isn't there.
That's one of the amazing things is that I don't, when turning on the television, get to see usually individuals talking about the future of Social Security unless there's a massive catastrophic problem. And, like you said with retirement, now things have gotten a little bit better. The new trustee report came out. Stephen Goss over at the SSA, the chief actuary, kind of, went through the details, said, hey, now it's been pushed farther back. We were originally looking at essentially 2034. Now that's far more years, even farther away. And so my concern is that the politicians, that's outside of a double, run for office. So all of a sudden, there's too much of a gap in time for them to want to deal with this stuff. I guess my question too, when it comes down to this scenario, and one of the things I haven't been able to finally do the videos on, and I have all the scripts written, which is not, which there's a couple of things I've been meaning to do. Every single state to live in, and basically, would it be beneficial to be disabled in that state or not? That's a whole series I've never gotten a chance to record. And then the other big thing that I record, or I started to record it, got a couple done, and then never got to, because I wasn't happy with it. When you have like your project, your baby, like your thing, it's never good enough, no matter what you do, until finally you just get to the point where you give up and say, I'm doing it. My big thing was to show people how to write a bill, how to do the analysis, what's the reasoning, what's the emotional connection, using literally that emotional wheel, that wheel of feelings that explains, where you're coming from with why you want to do this, going into detail as to how the committees work, how a bill goes through Congress, what are some of the dilemmas it runs into? Like you said, very, very important. The main thing is financially. How is this bill going to be covered financially? And the committees, that's the bills go to die there. Can you tell me what seem to be the biggest problems when it comes to fixing Social Security going forward with Congress? Obviously, politics aside, but just from the metrics and what are the steps? How does it work? And what are the issues we're running into?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's an ideological divide between people who view the government as having to play a very important role, and those who are more free market oriented. They believe capitalism doesn't need to be interfered with by the government. We let the free market work, let individuals deal with their own fate. So it's an ideological divide. But the best Social Security speech by any American president I ever heard was by Ronald Reagan when he signed the 1983 Social Security amendments. He described Social Security in ways I couldn't believe what I was hearing. But it took a crisis to get there, right? The trust fund was almost depleted. Maybe we have to wait for that 11th hour crisis. I don't want to wait, but I think it's built into our system. And Social Security requires bipartisan action. The House has to get a bill passed. The Senate has to get a bill passed. In the Senate, that means 60 votes. Well, I don't think you get 60 votes for many things today. So we have a built-in institutional challenge for bipartisanship. But there are certain programs that are so important. I go back to 1983. Bob Dole went to Daniel Moynihan, strong Democrat, strong Republican, and Dole said to Moynihan, we have to solve this. Too many people depend on Social Security. Well, if Bob Dole could say that in 1983, I think enough Republicans can say that in 2023, which is when I think we'll start to get serious about legislative action.
And that's so true. I grew up in an area that was farm country, and farm country is always, capitalism is based off of what you can work, the sweat equity you put into the fields and all that stuff. And going back there, it was just one of those things that it was a very different kind of reality going back to the farm, meeting the people. And one of the big things that they were upset about was, essentially the price of diesel being particularly high. And, diesel is very, compared to gasoline, they don't have to do that much refining with it. And these tractors, they consume diesel in massive amounts. So when I looked at the scenario and I kind of looked at the people and I got to see them from a fresh view of being away for a long time, what I realized is that there's acknowledgement, a very strong acknowledgement that these programs exist somewhere. What they are, many of these farmers didn't really know. They had no connection to understanding it other than maybe retirement and disability. And as a result of that, I think what I've noticed with kind of like the farm country-esque interaction is that they don't tend to see the city poverty, where there's a lot of homeless individuals, where if they didn't have a retirement to tap into at some point, that there would be even more theft and more problems and more aggression and more hatred and things like that. And what I've noticed is that the farm existence in America, the families tend to take care of the families. The families usually are a little bit more tied together unless they want to move out, go get educated and do something else. But what I noticed with that identity there was that they were less willing to pay into something because they wanted to keep more money themselves to produce more crops, buy more, essentially, better tractors, better implements, etc. So now that America is becoming less and less farmland. I mean, you saw what happened to the cow farms. I mean, we lost thousands upon thousands upon thousands of cow farms because they just couldn't make a profit. Where do you see, people going with how they feel about Social Security as a result of the farmland slowly disappearing to all kinds of things? It's just, massive housing versus, essentially it's being used as a parking lot versus farmers, their kids don't want to grow up living that lifestyle. How do you think things will change with how people look at Social Security as a result of that?
Well, I'm an optimist, Walter. I think when people are presented with facts in a balanced way, they make the right call. So we've done 2 nationwide surveys in which we ask people to solve Social Security's financing. And the results, whether you were an urban dweller, suburban or rural, whether you were self-identified as a Republican, Independent, or Democrat, whether you were young, middle-aged, or old, people said as part of the way to protect Social Security's future, I am willing to pay more. What other program can you think of in this country where someone will say, I'm willing to pay more? Why? Because they know that Social Security is there for them. It's an investment in their future, and they know how many people rely on it, and it does keep that sense of economic stability. It's also an engine because most Social Security dollars, they aren't saved. They get spent. They get poured right back into the economy. So it really is beneficial to have a lot of Social Security beneficiaries, particularly in a time of recession, because they're pumping money back into the economy. So there's a genius to Social Security. It helps the beneficiaries. It helps the people who are not beneficiaries. It helps the economy. It's really a genius of a program, and that goes back to your other question. That's why I profess to have had a lifelong love affair with Social Security. I plead guilty to that. It's intellectual and it's emotional because I see the benefit it provides to 65 million people today, and God knows how many millions going forward. So, but people get it. If you present it to them in an unbiased, factual way, they get it, and they end up supporting sound policy, even if it comes out of their own pockets to an extent. There's got to be a fairness about it. But this, again, it cut across all dimensions of the American population.
All right, now I've got one more question. And here's the thing. I tried to figure out how to basically have people call in and then switch to a new caller and a new caller, but then have the original caller hang up. And I couldn't figure out how to do that. But I got to get you back on the show at some point. We got to get you answering questions for the people that are watching.
I'd love to.
That would be amazing. So I want to ask you a question. I was sitting on the farm overlooking the fields, and then all of a sudden, all these big air balloons came out. And the thing that popped in my head was, what new technology is likely to come out that will change social insurance, Social Security benefits in general, the way people look at it, people wanting to invest into it, maybe not invest into it? What future technology is going to change the landscape of social insurance the most in the future?
I'm going to get in trouble with this question, Walter. So this is just, my own dream.
Sure.
And I ask we have an IT service, and I ask them, what's the next big thing? And I do think it will be an implanted chip. A chip that can convey what you're thinking if you wanted to do that. And once we're at that point, the application process for a benefit should be done instantaneously, right?
Yeah.
And think about that, what that does to the process of getting what you're eligible for. So if I had to pick one thing, and I don't believe this is too far-fetched, it'll be an implanted chip that communicates through transfers of wavelengths that get understood. As long as you're able to turn it off, I think this can change everything, particularly the process of applying for this morass of benefits that are bewildering. And your introduction showed that. So that would be what I would bet on.
I was thinking chips came in mind because of the capacity to automatically apply, automatically just scan, interact with the internet. I mean, maybe even upload information to you or give information back as answers. So, and I get why people, I get why you say this is getting me into trouble, because people are very afraid of adding anything to their body that the government could interact with. Even though to some degree a cell phone quasi is that, the only difference is that it's under your skin. And so I was thinking about it, and what I came to the conclusion of was, I'm a boater. I like vintage aluminum boats because A, they're available, they're usually cheaper, and frankly, they're better than fiberglass boats because they last forever. So the thing that I came to the conclusion was that when we have unlimited space travel, like in the sense of energy is not an issue, and we're now just coming out with the technology to pull out of the air literally those elements needed to create a powder. It's a protein powder that we can use to or bake things with, like a cake, etc. So once we get past the food thing, and once we get past, essentially the situation of unlimited power, then we get to this idea of unlimited space travel. And once we have these ships, that's kind of like what it is. It's a ship that you can sail around. You can go see different stars. Stay away from suns and black holes, but you could still interact with them. Once we get to that point where we have essentially food that we can create out of the elements in the air, unlimited power to power a ship, the thing is, what's odd is that the necessity of a government becomes less and less if you have the capacity to escape potential harm and travel anywhere. So for me, the big thing that's going to affect social insurance benefits the most is going to be essentially once we have the gathering of all those technologies and capacity to just travel anywhere. To me, that's the future landscape, the frontier, if you will, of social insurance, in that we will then have to decide what government needs to exist and to what degree, do we need to provide for individuals when the technology is readily available. If you look at Star Trek, Star Wars, Star Trek, you gotta love them. I mean, it's amazing. What you see is essentially the intermediary steps on different timelines. Of course, they're fake, they're made up timelines, but they're different intermediary steps with technology that completely changes how we interact with things. Star Trek, obviously, the traditional financial system doesn't exist. People are okay with it. It works well. But then what happens after that? And so for me, are we always, do we just hire a lot of people to repair our ships, repair the electrical generator, the food generator, et cetera, things like that? Is that the only job that's left, when we have the ability to create things, a clothing generator where it can just take atoms and automatically pull them together? And so for me, that is what I see as a moment in human time that will define social insurance the most aggressively. And but good sir, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think it's mind-boggling in a way when you think about it, right? What percentage of people alive today will experience space travel?
Yeah,
I don't think it's going to be a very high percentage.
true.
But there's another technological development that, to me, would be a sign we have failed. And that is if retirement income is not high enough to afford, say, leisure travel, we may end up saying, well, you can't have the real thing, but there's virtual reality. Sit back and make believe you're in the Greek Isles. Make believe you're in Australia. Make believe you're on that Alaska cruise. It'll be almost as good as the real thing, and it will cost you pretty much nothing. To me, that would be a sign we failed, right?
Yeah.
But I would not be surprised if that is an option for a lot of people. Virtual retirement, not real retirement.
That's a good point. I sit here all the time and I have on the computer basically, drone footage of the islands and things like that. And, what I've come to the conclusion of is that as time goes on, social insurance is becoming more and more crucial because money just doesn't go as far as it used to. We had the development of essentially, you had a traditional family and one person worked and they could afford a home. And nowadays it's like everybody's working and everybody's trying to figure out how they're going to buy the things that their parents had. And to me, social insurance is something that is like, and I hate to put it this way, but to some degree, in similar fashion, SSI is the last resort of financial means. That's kind of what, to some degree, Social Security is for the other aspects of this. Like if they come out with a free internet option, it would go under Social Security. If they come out with a free energy option, it would go under Social Security. To me, that's how this thing would evolve. But good sir, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I wasn't able to figure out how to get all the incoming calls working. I actually just got the phone holder here. I just got out of the package today, so I didn't even get to use that, which is why I'm holding the phone. But we got to get you back on the show. Can you please reach out to me in the near future and give me a date when you're ready?
I shall. I do note, Walter, on the chat feature, though, you're getting a lot of action. And somebody asked if I would repeat the website. Can I do that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But by all means, any and all answers. Yeah.
It's N as in New York, ASI.org. National Academy of Social Insurance, the abbreviation, nasi.org. Go on it. Put your email address in. We'll keep you informed. And I hope people will find that the website is providing them with the information they can use. The only thing we can't do is we can't get involved in individual situations. And it breaks my heart. We get people who call us because they've tried to get a Social Security benefit and they can't. And they come to us and they beg us for help. We can't do that. So I just caution people when you go on, it'll be education, but not advice to any individuals.
Ah, that's perfect. Good, sir. So that's amazing. All right. Next time I'm going to set up a whole thing with the chat section, have people call in. I'm going to get you working. So, yeah, indeed. Well, good.
I appreciate the opportunity to do this, Walter. So thank you.
Absolutely. Good, sir. Have a wonderful, wonderful night. And thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Oh, I'm so jazzed. I'm just like, I feel so good because you guys, you have to understand the knowledge base. These are essentially the individuals with that group, the nonprofit, that is the think tank, the literal bubble that the top minds in our country exist within to study and proffer potential options of how the system could work, could be better, etc. And it's just that is the CEO from Washington, D.C. That is just an absolutely amazing, amazing person to go ahead and we have to get him back on the show. So I'm super excited about that. What I'm going to do is I wasn't able to figure out how to get and here's how it works. When you have one person on the phone and another person joining to the call, and then you have another person call in, I didn't know how to end the call with the person who called in to allow a new call to come in. By the next time we have him on, we're going to have that technology. Also, I finally did get over here the special, thing that holds the phone onto the desk. I just didn't have a chance to set it up. And if you guys are wondering why I'm sweating a little bit, A, it's because I'm like really jazzed, but B, also my air conditioner has been broken for 4 days. I've lived in a house for 4 days with 91-degree temperatures. So this is the first day this morning where I've actually had some form of AC, and it's only like 83 degrees in the house now. It's taken more than a day to actually bring it down. Now, we're going to go ahead and take some phone calls. Let me go ahead and put the phone number in there real quick. And then basically in probably about 15 minutes, we're going to go ahead and call the security expert, get him on to get an update. Things, in my opinion, are starting to form and take shape as to what China wants to do. Here comes the first call coming in. 1 second. Hold on. Hi, this is Attorney Walter Knott. We are live on YouTube. Remember to use a fake name. Also, remember to mute the computer on your side. Would you like me to answer a specific question, or would you like me to go ahead and run hearing questions with you?
Yeah, Walter, I got some quick questions. One or two. Great show today. Great, if you want to call it a show, but great information. Here's what I got. I just today, actually, my Medicare kicked in. I'm 64 years old. I'm on SSDI. And it made me wonder, my wife is like 13 years younger than I am, so she's not going to retire anytime soon. And I started thinking, well, what if I grab my hat and check out like tomorrow and am gone? I'm dead. Will she still get my Social Security?
Yeah, you've tapped. You've become vested. They call it being vested. And what that means is that you've essentially, you've earned your right to collect. And when you've earned your right to collect, she can tap into those benefits as essentially not as a stacking option where they just take all of yours and put it on top of hers, but as a boosting option where they increase her benefits a bit more. So basically, if she becomes disabled, and you said she's a lot younger, if she's between 50 and 60, she can tap into your benefits. If she's not disabled and she's 60, plus with that, that system, she can go ahead and tap your benefits. If there's potential, there's other things too. There's disabled adult child benefits that are maybe available to essentially, when your children. I'm guessing most of your children are older than 18 to 22, but if they can show they were disabled during that time, they can tap into it. There's a lot of options out there. Like she can tap in, and that will definitely help her. But remember, this is a gig where if you've worked a lot throughout your life, earned enough throughout your life to get a higher amount or whatever, it's a boost thing. Yeah, like if it's pretty high, then that's really good for her because if you are smaller than the benefit that she was supposed to receive, then remember it's not going to be very helpful. But if you earned more and it's a higher amount, then they get to supplement hers with that with that difference and help her out.
Well, it's almost 3,000. But what I'm saying is she's still working, and if, like I said, I die tomorrow, can she still be earning her paycheck and receive my Social Security check?
So there's a tax limit issue where basically they take some away based off of her earnings over a certain amount. I mean, is she earning over like 19 grand?
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, yeah, she's going to run into some issues with that. But the bottom line is, remember too, the real thing is this program is set up, and she's, I'm assuming, not disabled and stopping working anytime soon, right?
No, she's ready to go. She's good.
Okay. So
she's probably making about 70,000-80,000 a year.
Yeah. I mean, like, you got to keep in mind in that situation, what you're talking about, she's really only going to be able to access more when she stops doing the work herself and starts looking at filing and getting to the social insurance program herself. That's where your benefits are really going to interact with her more than right now.
Okay. So what I'm thinking, because she can't get both of them when she retires, she can only get the higher of the two, correct?
Yeah, that's and really it's the higher of the two, but really it's hers plus they're just giving the additional amount that you would be getting to add on top of hers. So it's her plus a little bit more, but everybody just calls it the higher of the two, which is, I guess, an easier way to look at it. Yeah.
All right, because I think she thought the other day that it's one or the other, and I feel bad because I don't want her to be living here without the kind of income that she's used to getting. And that might sound selfish it might sound selfish, but honestly, it's not that bad. We don't,
Sure.
We live in a small house. I mean, it's not a lot of money. Now, a lot of people probably think it is, but it's not.
One thing that I think a lot of people don't start to think about until it's way too late in the game, and I think another thing that most people don't take advantage of that I think is incredibly crucial are trust funds. Trust funds are just not understood that much by the American people. They're underutilized, and they offer all of these legal protections, and people just think it's for the wealthy. You can have an itty-bitty trust fund that does a heck of a lot of lifting. Like, one of the things that I would say to you is, look, if you want to make sure that she's got a good setup, go check out the potential of a trust fund. Talk with the trust fund attorney to see how they could set it up so that, essentially, she has kind of the parameters for, making sure on a monthly basis she has more, can do more, et cetera. Because, a lot of people just think trust funds are for the rich, where they put it into, their houses and their assets into something for kids. And it's a spendthrift kind of thing where the kids can't go crazy, and buy a Maserati or whatever. I don't know fancy cars, but something fancy. What's another fancy car? Rolls Royce, or what's the other one? I can't. What's the other? It's a Rolls Royce, and then there's and a Bentley. That's the other one. So, yeah, Bentley's like the old world, old money version of a Rolls Royce. But all right, so the bottom line is this: go check out what trust fund options there are, trusts that you can create to go ahead and protect her going forward, because you're going to be surprised as to how much direction you can give that trust fund, and essentially how it will work with the trustee. And just so you know, you are the person that's like granting, grantor. Then there's a trustee, and then there's the recipient, the beneficiary. Your wife would be the beneficiary. There would be a trustee to go ahead and disperse the funds. You'd put in there the details as to, if she doesn't like the trustee, how to swap it out. But go look at that, because that's going to legally protect your funds, and it's also going to get you around some of the financial issues when it comes to when you pass, what happens, and how you get taxed.
Yeah, I'm worried about that because, listen, I live on the Florida Gulf Coast, on the Central Gulf Coast. You know me, I'm the guy that has a Grady white boat. But
sure,
I've talked to you before. But I bought a house here for like $80,000, and now it's worth like $500,000. And it's like, This is insane what's going on. I'm getting taxed, insurance, everything. It's crazy, and I'm worried about her when I'm dead that she can't live here anymore.
Well, they won't be able to increase the insurance, or rather the taxes at a just a ridiculous rate, because there's a lot of caps on that. So
my insurance doubled.
Yeah, I mean, so the insurance is going to be, look, nobody knows what's going to happen with Florida insurance. Some of the insurance companies are having money problems. The government's having to step in. Nobody knows what's going to happen with that. And it's one of those things where if there's a mortgage still on it, you got to have the insurance. How's the government going to interact with it on the state level? Is the federal government going to jump in, write a bill to go ahead and, do something about it, to even more cater it specifically for those who are in Florida, who are just in storm country? And I mean, I don't know if you saw it. We got 2 potential, hurricanes potential, they have to build a little bit more, it's coming off of Africa. So, kind of.
But, I was born here in 1958, and I've lived here all my life, and I've never been clobbered by a hurricane yet here in Central Florida. It never really happened, but
yeah, like you gotta understand. I live around the Cocoa Beach area, and we have been hit. And let me tell you, like if you go to, I don't know if you know where Bithlo or Christmas is and stuff like that, but a lot of those fiberglass trailers, they get destroyed, and I mean destroyed.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, but I mean, and that's the thing is like I always tell people, you're going to buy a trailer, whether it's like a little mobile trailer or it's like a bigger kind of like, full size, you park it there trailer, always go aluminum. Always go aluminum. It's not thick aluminum, but you can repair it better. It's going to last longer. It's just a better choice overall than the fiberglass. But I will say this: I've been hit with storms, and I mean, when literally before I pop up to Maine at some point to go on my like mini work vacation, I'm gonna line up whatever boats I have to protect the front of the house from heavy wind, because where I live, the storms hit badly. And in order to get my insurance, we had to call up a lot of companies because they did not want to cover me, and it was very expensive. But look, here's the things you got to worry about. What's going to happen to utility costs for that particular area? What's going to happen to insurance costs for that particular area? What's going to happen to food costs with the local stores in that particular area? I don't know if you noticed, but like you go to Naples, you go to like the inner city of Tampa, St. Pete, Orlando, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Jacksonville, whatever, food costs.
I'm in Clearwater.
Yeah. So the food costs are going way up, So but trust funds.
Like I said, I lived a wrong life, but I'm just worried about my wife. I just want to make sure she's going to be okay when I check out. I guess the best thing she can do is try to keep me alive as long as she can.
And please make sure she understands what the boat is worth. I see some, the guy dies, the wife is left. Like, she probably doesn't know what a Grady White is, but the boating industry, that's like, when you say Grady White, you're talking about boat industry names that people know. You're not talking about something that just popped up out of nowhere. You're talking about quality. So make sure she understands, if she does not intend to continue to use it. Like I've seen some people, and it's rare, it's more rare, I would say, that, where, the husband dies and then she sells off the Harley and doesn't realize what it was worth. But same gig, make sure she knows what the boat is worth, Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just boats. I got guitars. I got so much stuff. It's just insane. And she probably has no idea what my guitars, Gibsons, and Les Pauls.
Sure.
You name it.
Yeah.
But anyway, that boat, and I still love it. And I'm not through with it yet, but I can tell sooner or later I'm not going to be able to use it anymore. And it's sad, but you got to give it up. So I'll probably sell it before she has to, unless, I check out real quick.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and let me tell you, those Gibsons, that's a great investment. The ES guitars, the Les Pauls, absolutely incredible investments. They never go down. I've got an ES, I've got a JS200. I want to get a Les Paul. I just am poor, so I don't. But I've got, a bunch of Strats, Tellys, a bunch of what are they called? Taylor guitars. I've even got a Taylor acoustic that's been signed by Taylor.
I've got a Taylor. I've got a Takamine 12-string.
Sure.
I've got a Martin. I'm looking right now at some of them out there. Some of my good ones are in boxes. I got are in their cases. I got a Fender Strat.
Sure.
I mean, it goes on and on. And I do play a lot of guitar. And yeah, they're worth the money. And she probably has no clue what they're worth, but they are nice. They are. And they play nice.
I will say this. Make sure she knows what's of value, or just have a quick talk with her about how to get them appraised and stuff, and to get multiple appraisals, because, man, I'm telling you, like, I see it all the time. Some guy dies, it's an older woman, it's a vintage guitar, she's trying to get rid of the stuff, and then boom, somebody shows up within 5 minutes, thousands of dollars cash in hand, she's happy, and he can go and sell it for $30,000,
Yeah, I know. Anyway, I won't keep you. People need to get on here and ask you some questions.
Perfect, sir.
So, you take it easy, man. I love you, dude. You do a good job. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Have a wonderful night.
You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good.
Perfect, guys. So I'm gonna put the phone number in there real quick. We're gonna take the next call. Now, here's the thing. The reason I get a little bit excited about guitars is that recently I started to get back into essentially music, and I've been out of music forever. And there's things that I love above all, which are essentially Steinway pianos. I think they're incredible. If you ever get a chance to listen to some of the Steinway Bs and Ds out there, those are the big boys. The B is it's basically the 7-footish style piano. And then of course the Ds they're massive. They're 9-foot, concert grand pianos. I can't afford them. I have a smaller Model O 1970. It's a little beat up on the third. Well, no, I'm the second owner because the family owned it, then I owned it. But I've just been fiddling around with music a bunch because I've just had this incredible idea for a song, and it's a very powerful rock stadium poppy kind of song. I've just been really jazzed up about it. With that said, I've started to crack the cases on these guitars, and I just didn't even realize what I had for all this time because I haven't been touching them because I've been doing the law firm. Here we go. Another caller. Hi, this is Attorney Walter Knott. We are live on YouTube. Remember to use a fake name throughout this process. Would you like me to answer a specific question, or would you like me to run hearing questions with you?
I'd like you to specific questions.
Perfect. How can I help you?
Hi, this is Charlie O. I'm on SSI. I've been on SSI since '07, and they went back to '05. I got $19K in back pay and lost that in a year because they give it to you in 2 payments. I could have had a small house, but then my father died in 2013, left me a house and some money for the house, almost $250,000.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a lot of guitars now too.
Sure.
But I only got about $49,000 left in the trust because of the way that the trust is set up. You go through that money pretty quick. And I just turned double nickels, 55 years old. So I got $50,000. The house is insured. I got a Chevy Cruze. The car's insured. What can I do at this point I guess I could take less payments from the trust. But my trust was from '08. The S&T they set up back then didn't apply because they changed the rule in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm allowed to have direct payment checks. So I'm collecting an extra $1,000 a month on top of my $858. And I watch your show a lot. You've seen me on there, I'm sure. I got 90 guitars.
Damn, that is, man. I gotta tell you, I don't have 90 guitars. I maybe have 10, not 15.
No, I do. I got 90 guitars. Jeez. I got a Chevy Cruze. I got a house that I'm ending up by. I got about 49,000 left in the trust, and I know I had to stop taking $1,000 extra a month. But I've been needing it. I smoke Camel non-filters. They're $95 a carton. The cost of food's gone through the roof, and my food stamps are only $60.
Wait, they're $95 a carton?
Yeah, Camel non-filters. Try to find them any cheaper than $95 a carton. You might find them for $93, but I don't think. And I've been smoking them since they were 35 cents a pack.
Man, I'm not educated in cigarettes. I once dated somebody who smoked. But walk me through.
55. Back when I was a kid, kids smoked. They went to the store for their parents to get cigarettes, and then they bought a pack.
So walk me through this. These are cigarettes that don't have a filter, right? So it's just basically a rolled cigarette without that extra little foamy piece by where the mouth goes.
Yeah.
So why don't you just buy the cheaper cigarettes and then cut the foam piece off?
They'll never taste the same as.
They'll never taste. That's how music is. It won't sound the same if it's not the vintage guitar.
Well, same with me. I'm a collector, you. It's same with the guitars, but I do sports cards, albums, 8-tracks, cassettes, stereo equipment, computers. I got 900 computers.
Jeez.
Starting to get more than LGR. So. And it just accumulates. I guess when I run out of money, I'll be able to sell my records and all my stuff, just to live.
I mean, honestly, one of the big things you're going to have to watch out for is that the government is tightening down on everything. So the moment you sell anything, they're going to know. They're going to be on top of that. They're going to be like, "Where's our percentage? What was the increase of? What did you get it for? What was the capital increase on it?" I mean, that's the thing that I think is very scary.
Yard sales or a pawn shop where you don't have to use your name, you might be able to,
Yeah, but even the pawn shops, they've changed so much since when I was a kid. I mean, you've probably seen it too, but it's a totally different world. I mean, remember the pawn shops were a hole in the wall, and now it's like they're a business, you know?
Yeah. Well, I've really never been asked at too many pawn shops for my ID. Sometimes depends on what you're selling. Anyway, I was wondering about the COLA for the SSI recipients and any changes that you can explain that might occur to help the marriage penalty, to help you find a girlfriend, to help you get a partner in life. I've been searching since I was 30 years old. I'm 55 years old now. I found a few girlfriends, but they weren't on SSI.
Sure.
There's a place you go to meet girls who are on SSI. You're both going to take a pay cut anyway. So, you know, and it'd be nice. When I was homeless, I had more girlfriends than I do now. And now I got everything. Chevy Cruze, house, big screen TV. I'm thrifty. I keep the lights low and do what I can living alone. But I'd like to meet somebody and die with somebody. I got a daughter and grandkids, but I help them out with all my extra money. So it's not like I'm getting anything or I found a loophole or something like that. The rules said that you could do this with the SMT. And now I'm going to freak out when I can't live on, at least 1,500 or 1,800, somewhere in there. I got to have at least that much money to live each month.
Sure.
Gas for the car and all this stuff. And also I wanted to know about the SNAP. Will it affect the SNAP? Because if I don't have at least $20-$30 in SNAP, you'll lose $3K in benefits.
Yeah.
With the sewer,
yeah,
help for gas and things like that. I was just wondering because you seem pretty knowledgeable on it. I did see a few of your videos where you addressed the issue, and it came up that some of these things are in bills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's a couple of bills. Yeah. So the way it works is there's really three primary bills that are pushing the agenda of changing how SSI is applied, getting rid of the 1/3 reduction rule, also known as the in-kind support maintenance rule, getting rid of the marriage penalty rule, increasing the benefits to a minimum, increasing them continuously at a better rate above, 100% the poverty rate, 115% poverty rate, 125% the poverty rate. For you, finding somebody who's on SSI right now would be a terrible thing because the marriage penalty rule would be, hitting you. So finding somebody who's not an SSI individual.
Yeah, but I'm not hurting for money, and I think it would be better if there's 2 brains and 4 hands. You can live better.
But you just don't want them on SSI.
It's not like nobody's gonna lose their health care. That's a good thing. Even though you'd probably lose $110 each person, maybe a little bit more. I don't think you'd lose more than $110 per person if you're only making. My state allows $860 max. So and then if you need paper statements, so that's costing you $2 at the bank right there.
Right.
For the paper statements.
So the basic thing is this: they're trying to boost all of the couple parameters so that basically instead of being like instead of being $2,000 in assets that a person can have on SSI, it would be $10,000. Instead of being $3,000 for a couple, it would be $20,000. But what you got to remember is right now we're in a weird political environment, and that's where essentially the benefit of the American people are put on the bench, while all of these other things, such as immigrants, foreign policy, green energy, and basically super funding other countries, are at the forefront. And what the administration just passed was a major bill to go after and aggressively tax Americans more by hiring more and more special IRS agents to go ahead and basically get more money to come into the system.
All that, Walter, that's a lot. And they give them a bunch of guns too.
Well, yeah, that's some of them are. I mean, remember that they're going to be doing a lot. If you're wondering if the IRS is going to be following you around more, they're hiring those people. That is correct. They are hiring those individuals as a result who have to be able to protect themselves and potentially interact with somebody.
Does anybody who's making over $300,000 or $400,000 a year probably has the brains to put it into an LLC or something where they're getting passive income that they just can't touch it. There's laws and rules. If you're following the laws and rules that they set, you don't have to pay taxes. That's like people got mad at Trump and other people who use those tax rules. Well, they're using the tax rules. That's,
So
they're allowed to do that.
So here's the thing. One of the things that people on SSI or SSDI or retirement that don't have lots of funds don't realize is that $300,000 to $400,000 in the scheme of a business person working their entire life, building their assets, building their whatever, making money, $300,000 to $400,000, even if they're making that per year, is not actually that much money in comparison to the mega money people, where they're earning, $1 million a month. $2 million a month, $20 million a month. So what you have to understand is a lot of those individuals that don't have lots and lots of funds look at $300,000, $400,000 as this mega, impossible, could never be achieved amount in a year. But the reality is that among people that make money, like real money, like upper class, like people, that's on the low end. And a lot of people don't realize that's something, essentially that's on the low end. Now, on the other side of the coin, you have SSI people being like, dude, I got nothing. You're lucky because you got the trust fund set up. You got a bunch of assets. I've got literally, man, I was in the woods the other day working with a guy who's on SSI, prepping a motion to be submitted on his behalf to show that he's homeless and should be receiving the full $841 per month in Florida. And literally, I sat on a wooden stump, and he was kind enough to go ahead and put a piece of clothing down on it for me. But the bottom line is, I sat on that stump and filled out this thing on my computer so I could go ahead and complete it. I had to walk into the woods to get to him because he just wasn't doing well. He wasn't feeling well, and I've been doing that for a long time. But point is, the problem, the problem we run into is that there are people that earn a chunk of money, and they could potentially pay more into it. And they should look into that. Because look, if they want society to work,
pay more, but
Now, with that said, though,
the way the rules are set up now, though, if you put your money into a trust that's inside of an LLC, and you're continually making about $200,000, $300,000 a year, they can't touch your money. That's the way the rules are set up now. And as long as you're showing that it's a passive income that's inflow, or that you're generating a loss, and the assets, they don't even appear because they're inside of the LLC in a trust. And, it's like me, I'm at the other end. I spent 7 years homeless, and now I'm living on my SSI, and I'm not well at all. I have to take a lot of pills for diabetes, and I don't heal as well anymore. And you get old. 55 shouldn't be old, but when you get diabetes, it's old.
Sure.
So, the little bitty $60 worth, I was getting 90, and then before COVID. And then during COVID, it was like a miracle, 170 something dollars. But during the crisis, the EAU, or the emergency thing. So I thought, well, that's cool. And then I figured, okay, I took one of those Q-Link phones finally. I was on 2G until just about 5-6 months ago, and then I got the Q-Link phone. Now I'm on 4G. That scares me.
So, and you got to understand, you got to understand with this stuff, the poverty in this country is becoming rampant. The bottom funding system to keep a lot of those people just barely surviving is struggling. So across the board, financially, we're not doing so great. And that's why we're looking to the mega wealthy, the upper crust, those individuals to help fund it more. But what scares me about the legislation that's recently come out is that a lot of middle-class individuals that maybe have a side hustle that can, that give themselves the money to pay the mortgage, gives themselves the money to have a little bit better life, they're going to get clobbered, if they get chosen for an audit, and that to me is, it's not a good thing.
I wanted to thank you for everything. I want to let somebody else get on here. I like you sometime when you're not having too many other guests to separate it out into sections, the SSI people, the SSDI people, and Social Security people, and explain to everyone. And I know you've got lots of videos. I've watched as many as I could on the subject, but just sort those out a little bit. And these last 3 months, 4 months till the new year are real important to keep an eye on the bills. So I really like your guests. great to hear people who know and they're out there in the field. And
I'll
that's a good
do
time.
I'll do more videos on those bills. You know, the thing is, I get frustrated with them too. As a person, I see them going into committee. And to be honest with you, my life has been more and more spinning towards potential doing a political role to go ahead and write bills and then push other Congress individuals towards basically getting them passed. Because these committees, man, it's where these things go to die. And the first question they ask is, how are we going to pay for it? And with the country being in such a severe, dismal kind of like, financial, we're on shaky ground. We're on shaky ground. And then what doesn't help is, we see money going out the door left and right to all these other interests in these things. But, the reality is there's a very, very gentle spider's web that we have over the rest of Earth with other countries that we use to get a lot of the resources and raw material and finished materials back to the US at a cheap price for us to buy. And so, that's one of those things that they don't really talk about, is that a lot of these other countries have what we use, that we need. And as a result of that, we have these relations where we put a military base there and they have our protection and we're the big bad. But what's happening is we just, as the richest country, quasi, I say that, in a limited fashion, as the richest country, we're propped up by this reserve currency being used by all these other countries. But, when some of these other reserve currencies in Europe, some of these other reserve currencies between, Africa, China, and Russia start to really take off, we got a big problem, because we're going to go into a massive depression, and people don't realize that. And people aren't even talking about it that much online. So, but anyways, good sir, thank you so much for being on the show. I will catch up with you later, and enjoy those guitars.
Yep, I will.
Perfect.
All right.
Excellent. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye. So yeah, Fasting Star Channel, one of the things you got to understand too is that we all look at the things that we want to be a part of. And one of the things that obviously I'm very passionate about is essentially making sure people are taken care of. And at the base fundamental of that are programs to make sure that they have the basics, whether it's food, electricity, internet, or some sort of, we got another person calling in. I'm going to take one more call, and then we're going to go to security expert. Here we go. 1 second. All right. Hi, this is Attorney Walter Knott. We are live with YouTube. Remember to go ahead and use a fake name throughout this process. Would you like me to answer a specific question, or would you like me to go ahead and run hearing questions with you?
Well, I hope that you can answer a specific question. My son-in-law got approved for disability after waiting 6 years, and he got approved May 5th of this year, and he still has not received a payment or a check from him.
Is he
calls every week, and they tell him the same thing. It's in the payment center, and they won't tell his lawyer anything. We don't even know how much he's going to be making per month.
So has he done his pre-effectuation interview yet, or no?
What exactly is that?
So in order to get paid, benefits, you have to do the pre-effectuation interview. And, SSI, it's a heavier one because there's a lot of financial questions. But basically, the bottom line is it's an interview. And the interview goes through the 9 financial requirements, any little administrative oddities that they need to make you aware of or see if you don't meet it. So after you get your medical approval, you still have to go through the phone call for the other stuff approval. And that's your pre-effectuation interview. And what happens is this: if he doesn't have that with the local field office, or it doesn't get set up, or somebody doesn't do it, then basically he's just sitting there, waiting for somebody to call him from the local field office to go ahead and do that interview. Now, once he gets that interview done and they do their basic questions, the SSDI ones are super duper fast. They're just, it's like a quick phone call and you're done. Once you get done with that, then if it's SSI, the local field office usually handles payments. If it's SSDI, there's specific payment processing centers that actually set that all up and get it paid out. Now, remember, there's another thing you need to keep in mind before we go to the rest of the answer, which is with SSI, you get 3 checks worth, wait 6 months, 3 checks worth, wait 6 months, and the rest of your back pay. With SSDI, you might be due retroactive benefits, which are benefits of months, that essentially you get paid for before you even filed, and back pay benefits as well, potentially, from when you filed to when you're found disabled. And remember, it all comes down to when they make the alleged onset date. If the alleged onset date is before you filed, retroactive benefits and back pay. If it's when you filed, back pay benefits forward to when you're found disabled, or it could be after when you filed. But the bottom line is this. Oh, yeah, go ahead. So he's SSDI disability, traditional disability Title II.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So what happens is this. Do you know which payment center his claim is being processed in?
No.
Okay.
He calls the 800 number, which I guess is out of Washington.
So it's a little tough to hear you. If you just hop off of the speakerphone and go direct to the phone. But here's kind of the thing. Number one, you have to find out which payment processing center his claim is at. Number two, you have to find out at the local field office, essentially, if there are any holdups, any flags on his claim. If you're not able to get a hold of them or not able to interact with them, then you have to contact your regional field office, which basically, they're a quick line. They call over the field office. You get a call either later that day or you get a call the next day where they're saying, okay, we're working on it. We have to fix it. And then basically, remember, you're looking at two types of payments. You're looking at his forward pay. That's where he gets a check every month being disabled, and also his back pay / retroactive benefits. So, when you call in, to the local FO, you want to ask.
Are you there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Are you there?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
I think I lost you.
Oh, okay. So here's the deal.
Hello?
Yeah, I can. Can you hear me?
Hello?
You can't hear me? Hello?
Hello?
Okay, I'll call you right back. I'll call you right back. Hold on, guys. Let me boop. Boop. Here we go. Let me see if I can get through this person real quick. Kind of lost him there for a little bit. Let's see if I can get through. Hold on. Hopefully I can. Still connecting. Let's go for another ring. We got another ring. Oh, there we go. Okay, perfect.
Sorry, I lost you.
Yeah, no worries. So basically, first thing you're going to want to do is find out where his payment center is. Usually you can get a phone number and extension to the person that's handling the payment processing. And then number two, you want to contact the field office and basically ask them, if there are any flags or holdups on his claim. And if they can't give you any information, you want to reach out to the regional field office to have somebody with knowledge go ahead and call you back related to what's going on with this claim. And remember, there's two types of benefits that you're going to be getting here. You're going to be getting forward pay, his monthly check every month, and also back pay / retroactive benefits, which are, all the back pay he was waiting to go ahead and receive. What a lot of people don't realize is that sometimes, and it's very rare, something will happen where somebody is doing something wrong at the field office, and could be malicious, could be intentional, or could not be. But there's sometimes where you have to reach out to the Office of Inspector General to go ahead and notify them that you've been waiting for an extended period. And as a result of that, you're very concerned that there might be something going on where you're not receiving the benefits appropriately, where somebody at the government might be, basically covering up something that's happened inside the agency. Remember, there's a lot of people working at the SSA. It's hard to watch them all. So what I would do is...
How do I get the phone numbers to these places?
Oh, well, here, I'll show. Hold on. Okay, give me one sec. Say field office search. So you go into Google, you type into Google SSA field office zip code, right? I'm doing the one hand thing. Then you click on the field office locator. Then you go to locate an office by zip. What's your zip code?
73010.
Okay, cool. Let's see. Okay, so you're Oklahoma. So this is the phone number you're going to call. It's the 866-964-4260. Again, 866-964-4260. And then you're going to look up the regional SSA field office. And we need to find Oklahoma. Let me see real quick. Let me see. Wait, does that give me the regional? No, they never added that feature. Hold on. Let me go down here. Okay, let me see. All right, so where are you on you're Oklahoma, right?
Correct.
Okay, so tiny little map. All right, hold on. Let me see if I can find it real quick, because I don't know offhand essentially where or who your regional field office is. So let me see. I'm looking for like around Texas area. So Dallas is probably it. Let me see if this includes it. Oklahoma. Yeah. All right. So here's the guy you're going to want to go ahead and email about the issue. His name is Eric Crum. It's ERIK, again, ERIK dot CRUM CRUMB, again, CRUMB at ssa.gov. So it's eric.crum.
SA.
Yep, at ssa.gov. Perfect. And
Okay.
he's the regional, he's the coverage specialist for the regional office for your particular area, which is basically like Texas. So basically Arkansas, Louisiana, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Texas. This is the guy you want to reach out to.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Now remember, if you're still having issues after this, you reach out to the Inspector General. Okay. So if you still run into issues, Google SSA Office of Inspector General.
Okay.
Perfect. Well, sounds good.
You
Madam?
have been a lifesaver.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you have a wonderful, wonderful night.
Thank you so much, and you have a great time.
Thank you, you too. I'll catch you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So I'm going to reach out now to the security specialist to kind of check in with him, see how he's doing. Let me go ahead and see if I can get him real quick on the phone. Boom. Here we go. Excellent. Now it's a little bit late. We might not be able to get him. Keep in mind, you know, time's very important for him, for how this stuff works. Let me see if I can get him on the phone real quick, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Good evening, Walter.
Excellent, good sir. I've got you on the phone. I'm really excited. I've been seeing stuff on my end that's been happening with security changes. Walk me through. What are we looking at?
Okay, so let me just add a brief piece up front, if I can, please. CJ Lewis, for those here for the first time this evening, we're working with new software and incredibly high technology that we've been working towards the last few weeks. Walter, our new format, as you and I previously spoke of, will be the top 5 information items or so, with an occasional bonus, and it'll provide us with a unique work product that if you require anything greater, we can possibly speak to it or provide a response that fits your time need. But lastly, just like last week and the preceding week, the amazing crew here asked that we make sure we get a few shout outs to your chat group at the end. You ready?
Perfect, ready.
All right, here we go. Let's start out with number 1, and this is breaking stuff that's occurring within hours for the most part. We had the UN nuclear experts made their first inspection of that power plant that the Russians took over in Zaporizhzhia back in early March at the beginning in Ukraine, and they're there to maintain a presence, and they're staying. We've talked about the chief, Rafael Grossi. He said to us today the plant and physical integrity of the plant had been violated several times. The inspectors were accompanied to the plant by Russian soldiers, but that's after some crazy shelling took place. Who did the shelling? Both Russian and Ukraine accused each other of trying to sabotage the mission. Ultimately, Chief Grossi from the Atomic Agency gets in and says, hey, here we are. Ukraine staff's been manning this at sometimes gunpoint to keep this plant running. He indicates we're not going anywhere.
Oh, wow.
We're staying at the plant. We're moving in. It's going to stay here. And look, we're more concerned about preventing a nuclear accident than the politics and the war. So Russia reports later to us that they're going to leave 8 to 12 inspectors. Ukraine says, no, we're going to have 5. They'll work that out. But at the end of the day, nothing's going to take place near the plant, and nothing's going to stop these inspections. It's a great relief for a lot of people, a lot of countries. It's been a tremendous concern. We talk about others with their hand on nuclear devices. There's still equipment inside the warehouse at the power treatment plant of Russian military vehicles. And we know this. We're just really, really excited. They knocked off some of the craziness and stopped shelling this place and putting the world at rest. Number 2, and this is what you were asking for. You're talking about China. You're talking about North Korea. Here's the new Russian assistance coming in from Iran. They will be providing military-grade heavy attack drones for the Russian military.
Oh, wow.
But here's the bigger piece. We got verification just in maybe 3 hours ago. North Korea claims they're prepared to deploy 100 100,000 military volunteers to assist the exhausted Russian army in the attack on Ukraine.
Oh, wow.
Now, you got to remember, North Korea is the fourth largest army in the world, with over 1.5 million active duty military personnel and over 600,000 reservists. Now, like Russia, North Korea uses old technology weapons that have already been paid for by Russia, but we're also learning that more than 1,000 construction workers are being assembled from North Korea to begin rebuilding the Donbass region in eastern Ukraine.
Ooh.
Wow, right? So Europe and the U.S. are already completely in that defense mode with the NATO alliance, but the Russian Iran and North Korea have increased their strategic cooperation for some time. And we're seeing it here. We're seeing it, and these are incredible numbers. If in fact this plays out, these are incredible numbers to work with, moving those number of people into the battlefield. On the note of Russia, one of President Putin's allies passed away suddenly yesterday.
Yeah.
Following a severe illness. The chairman of Russia's Luke oil giant, Ravi Maganov, he had died falling from a hospital's 6th floor window.
No. This is terrible.
It's a horrible illness. Russia obviously wanted to indicate he was there for injuries and other things. TASS News, the Russian news team, kind of let it out a little bit earlier today that he had taken his own life. We believe there are no coincidences in life in our organization. So today, after this was revealed, the United States obtained a warrant to seize the $45 million aircraft owned by Luke Oil.
Wow.
They unsealed an affidavit, aviation and financial services company that were all linked to Luke Oil. And they now have an active warrant to seize the property. It's out of the southern districts to seize that aircraft as an asset based on some horrible dealings.
Wow.
We're going to talk about Kherson, which is right above Crimea. And this was one of the key decisive victories for Russia on the southern part of Ukraine. And it's under attack right now by Ukraine military in a massive move to take back the city. Progress is slow and steady, according to the Ukraine General Forces. As a reminder, Ukraine destroyed the bridges over the Dnipro River. In previous weeks, we've talked about this, isolating about 25,000 Russian troops without supplies. If the Ukrainians can take out most of the Russians on the bank of the Dnipro River, they can claim a major strategic victory. If they do take the whole Kherson region back, there'd be essentially no Russians west of the river. It would cut Ukraine in half. It would protect Odessa, Mykolaiv, which are economic and military importance, and protect Western Ukraine from most of the conflict. Now, that river goes all the way from Kyiv all the way down to the Black Sea. So taking out the 20,000 or so troops, 25,000, would be really a precarious situation for Russia. Why is this important? What's so important here? It's a political thing, but it's strategic as well, because the region borders Crimea, and that area controls its fresh water supply.
Oh.
Okay, so yeah, it continues the land bridge, but that water supply is just paramount. We saw it during the battle of Crimea back in 2014. This port, Kherson, sits just maybe 100 miles from the port of Odessa, and Kherson would be a great stepping stone if Russia wanted to take Odessa, but it looks like the battle is on, and it's really it's engaging. They're just firing nonstop with everything they have. Russians have fortified the exterior of the city, and it's believed that Ukraine forces have gotten through the first set of barriers. So we'll maintain that update. Here's where we're going to go from here. The fallout from this war in countries in food security is really an issue globally. we've talked about this before. Shifting to the United States of America, we're seeing our farmers suffering due to things that we've spoken of previously. Fertilizer prices, water for irrigation in livestock as well as crops, the cost of fuel to run their equipment on the farm, and other weather and economic issues. There's only so much farmland in the United States, as you were speaking about earlier. When Russia invaded Ukraine last spring, there's a big worry people would go hungry as wheat remained stuck in the ports, and there was little farmers could do to meet the demand. Just in the last couple of days, the United States Department of Agriculture encouraged American farmers to do something most of them haven't ever done, and that's called double cropping. Double cropping. The idea here is they put down basically two sets of crops and just try and squeeze in a fall plant. Winter wheat if they can get it for harvest in late spring, and then trying soybeans or another product. The problem comes in when the cool weather and the spring harvest, depending on the weather, whether or not it works. It's also a financial challenge or episode that the farmers would need to take on themselves. Because of the war overseas, the supply of wheat to people in Africa and the Middle East after the invasion in Ukraine doubled to like $12 a bushel. And now we're only seeing the first ship from Ukraine actually make it down to Africa just this previous week. The USDA didn't respond back to us when we asked about how much we could expect with double cropping, but it's just gotten to the point where $251 per acre is the return for wheat and soybean, and it's $81 higher than a standalone soybean crop. So the double crop benefit, if you will, remains to be a challenge that the farmers will have to decide if they can get it done. But they do have the support of removing some of the insurance prerequisites from the farmers that will now allow them to produce this double crop. Speaking of food, we're going to jump to something in the United States that many of your viewers or listeners maybe already have experienced, and that was a outage of the SNAP system on Sunday, affecting, I'm going to say, a couple of million people in the states of South Carolina and Massachusetts. They went shopping, they got to the counter, they went to use their SNAP card or EBT cards, and they were denied. And it really was just pretty overwhelming for a lot of folks. They ended up ultimately resolving the issue with the third-party vendor that both states had used for processing the EBT SNAP program. Mm-hmm. But it became a nationwide outage. One of the things that they're not talking about is, because it's a third-party vendor, what happened?
Yeah, good point.
Was it a cyber attack? Was it just a software issue? But where we're going to come away from that is the shop here wanted to remind you and others that there's disaster SNAP benefits available under certain circumstances. And that's when the President of the United States or the Food and Nutrition Service declare a major disaster. Families and individuals who live in that area may be eligible for SNAP benefits and meet special higher income levels. There's a lot of information online about it. Please, we ask you and each of those folks listening to access the internet and just input disaster SNAP, SNAP benefits, and be familiar with what you may need to provide and how those services may be applicable in the event of a disaster, similar to what we're seeing in the area of Jackson, Mississippi, due to the weather and the high water that's destroyed their city. That would be a good example that's very, very current. Some of the things that we did a quick look at, some research. What are stores running short on? We're starting to see stores with food items. We have photos that have been submitted from around the country and internationally of empty shelves in large big box grocery stores and other providers. Just empty shelves. And what are they running short on? So we have a quick list here. Chickpeas, and it's due to lack of production. Wheat, as we just talked about. Canned goods. And depending on how they're packaged, if it's could be aluminum, could be the product that's inside the can, tomato paste, canned vegetables, soda. These are or pop, as some call it, depending on where you live. Canned goods. We had one individual walk into a big box store, and the item was mistagged, and we got to the register when it was discovered. That one can of non-brand name tomato sauce went up 12%.
Whoa.
Yes. 12%. So the comment was, my EBT card wasn't working, and then I recognized that they were going to overcharge me anyway. So I went back and I got the price, and while I was standing there, they changed the price tag in front of the items. 12% on a can of non-name brand tomato sauce.
Jeez.
Also on that list are eggs and meat. We talked about the eggs and chicken issue back when the avian flu was really rocking. Meat, we talked last 2 weeks ago about the problems in the Midwest with beef and the number of beef going to auction. They can't keep the livestock growing. Pet food. There is a pet food shortage. We've talked about it a little bit. Just making sure you put some stuff aside for your furry friends and family, staple foods, treats. Baby formula, we're familiar with how that all went down. And lastly, liquor. Depending on where it's imported from, where it's made, cost of making wine through the roof out in California and other places, glass. And we know why it's becoming short on these 10 items. Here's the thing we would like to add. Show responsibility. There's no reason to panic buy. Buy what you need and only what you need, and grab an extra can if it's something you will use. You're guarding against inflation if you can afford to do that. On the day you need to start would be the day you're in the store. If you're wondering what food to buy before more inflation hits, real brief, it's peanut butter, pasta, canned tomatoes, as we just described, baked goods, that flour, sugar, yeast, cooking oil, canned vegetables, canned fruits, and applesauce. Those are the ones that we see just, going to start rocking up. It's going to start rocking up. We're going to talk about rain just for a second. Something absolutely unbelievable occurred in Pakistan. It is monsoon season. As we spoke about a few weeks ago, they have received over 500% above average in these two provinces. But here's the amazing thing. There's spectacular new satellite photos that show how the Indus River, INDUS River, returned into a province and filled a 100-kilometer wide inland lake.
Oh, wow.
100-kilometer inland lake. Unbelievable. United Nations officials that are on site said there's massive swaths of the country are now underwater. Heaviest rainfall in living memory. They've lost over 1,100 people to death, 3,500 injured, and it affected, ready, 33 million people since mid-June.
Wow.
This number is greater than the population of like the country of Australia, right? So just massive, domestically in the United States, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, portions of the Florida Panhandle, flash flooding, destructive water, Jackson, Mississippi, chief of police, FEMA, everybody they could think of, including the mayor, was telling the people, leave town now.
Wow.
Folks stayed. Folks stayed. It reached flood stages. Their water treatment facility was flooded when the water crested this week. There's very little opportunity there until this recedes for services to come in. Again, we talked about disaster staff. If you're living in that area, please find an opportunity, find somebody who can help you locate these services. And if EBT and staff are back up, let's see you get what you need, even if you have from a distant area that was not able to be resupplied in the city or nearby communities. The flip side of this are the droughts in EU, or the European Union, are levels almost 500 years in the making. Italy's worst drought, the Tiber River. There was a bridge over the river used by Roman emperors, Emperor Nero, in the 1st century. It's now being able to be seen, the remains of that.
Wow.
Yeah, just incredible. Lastly, shout outs for tonight were just handed over to me. Hold on one second. Gerald, our rock star from Globe Satellite Imaging Shop, shouts out to all your viewers chatting and commenting about the love of those that play and love music.
Yeah.
Right? And Amy from our international shop shouts out to Peltown Posse, Micah Breach, I'm not sure I pronounced that correctly, and Peanut Butter Jelly Time for recognizing the troubling financial crisis the United States and people are struggling with. And that's what we got for you tonight.
Oh my God, that was amazing. You know, and one of the things that I saw recently, I don't know if I still have it up, but basically there was an island that was off the coast of specifically Australia. Let me see if I can find it real quick. But basically, U.S. ship, I'm just going to type this in real quick to see if I can find U.S. ship denied port by island nation, which is, I think, what will pull up the situation. And what happened is that, here we go. Oh, I think I got it. 1 second. Let me go over to Google, the main search. Yeah.
Wait a minute. They just handed it to me. Was it Solomon Islands?
Yeah. That worried me because these are chess pieces in the Pacific Ocean that China is picking up, and we are losing. And that's a no bueno, you know?
It is. The premier of the Solomon Islands, and again, we tried to limit it to just a few things, but you brought it up. The Solomon Islands, they had a Coast Guard cutter, the Oliver Henry, and it announced it was, as well as it's the Oliver Henry, I'm sorry. There was a speaking ceremony for the hospital ship Mercy, was heading over that way, and the Prime Minister announced a temporary moratorium on visits by foreign naval vessels. And unfortunately, by the time the approval was communicated to the ship's captain, they had left the waters. The port call was routine, according to John Kirby, press secretary of the National Security Council. And it was stopping for resupply and refuel, but they didn't get the clearance, and the ship diverted to Papua New Guinea. And kind of disappointed, Mr. Kirby announced, and lacking diplomatic clearance. That's tough. That's tough. So again, are they trying to maintain that all the rules will apply to all visiting naval vessels,
or just us?
It'd be it'd be interesting to see how it rolls out, because the government there has asked all partner countries with plans to conduct naval visits or patrols to put them on hold until they have a mechanism in place that's accepted universally, right? So,
right.
So, actually, unless you were in this space early in COVID, when it first broke, the USS Mercy was actually docked in New York Harbor at the direction and request of President Trump to be used for COVID patients. And it actually sat at the pier with not a single patient being allowed on board by New York Department of Health, New York City Department of Health. So, so back to the Solomon Islands. If they're drawing up their sides and they're going to align with Beijing, again, it's got to be something that everybody needs to be aware of.
You know, the thing that I see with this is I look for the big things, and then I also look for the little things. Because when when there's corporate situations where where somebody high up is essentially moving to a different corporation, and then you start to hear rumors outside of the corporation, kind of slithering and sneaking their way into the original corporation that the person is leaving. To me, this is one of those where basically we're starting to see changes and rumors and little budding flowers of how the future landscape and the wild flowers are going to be growing on this field. And what concerns me is that this is a nation that is really close to Australia. I mean, they're way closer to Australia than they are China, and yet they've got this new agreement with China. And what's scaring me is that, like, these are the little buds, these are the little seeds that are going into that field of all the countries. Geographically, it scares me because of it being so far away from China, the U.S. needing to be very careful of it. Because if China, gets to work out a deal where that's a naval base, I mean, the U.S. has a problem. And all of a sudden, Australia is going to need the U.S. to really beef up their naval base, activities in their particular area. So from my perspective, it's these little things. And then you told us some huge things, which now really worried me. But yeah, so anyways, good sir. I'm going to do this because we're at 10:30, but that was amazing. That was really succinct. That was really right to the point. That was incredible. I got to catch up with you throughout the week. I'm really excited about the structure because it's just so easy to follow. Catch up with me, and thank you so much for coming on the show, because I think people are really starting to dig deep with the info you're giving them, and I think that they're starting to understand the relationship between them and lack of funds, low benefits, and how to prepare for a situation. Because and I'm going to say this, my mom would always say to me, basically, you want to sweat during the good times so you bleed less during the bad times, and that's what I want essentially these viewers to be able to do, which is to essentially, prep a little bit so that it's not terrible, horrible when something really big does happen, even though Ukraine, Russia is huge,
It is. And the idea is, if you can find it on sale, if you can plan with others, hey, you may not need X number, 5 cans, but it's buy 5. And maybe you got somebody that 5 people all want a can, and you just get it together. Start looking for work with your communities, and the word prep is no longer a bad word. The word prep is no longer a bad word. It means you're being prepared for what may happen. And again, please don't forget our furry family.
Indeed.
I shouldn't say furry or skin-like lizards. Yeah, I've got different stuff. But, and I didn't mean to offend anybody. I'm getting dirty looks from guys who keep iguanas and stuff. But,
there's always a lizard guy.
Again, they require heat, they require food and water, and they're near and dear to our hearts, and sometimes they're the balance of our life when things are dark. And just keep that in mind. May you have a safe week. May you all feel just a little bit better mentally and physically, and look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Perfect, sir. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I'll catch you later. Have a wonderful, wonderful night.
You too, sir. Be well.
Thank you. Bye-bye. That was awesome. That was really good. That was succinct, detailed, boom, boom, boom. That was amazing. So Shadow actually just popped over here. He's put his little head on top of my lap. He wants to go outside. So I got to end the show, but I will catch you guys a little bit later. I'm sorry Sweetie kept barking and snarking in the background. She is Daddy's little Jewish American princess, and I love her and I've spoiled her, and she's just come over and she just heard her name. So she's just spoiled. Now, Mary Multiple, just email me. I want to do the videos where I show people how to basically write law, how to write bills. I want to create bills. I've been really excited about that. I haven't had enough time to work on spaceconstitution.com because I've been restoring the family farm, which gets my parents a check every month. In the future, I got to repaint the main house. I got to finish my sister's deck. So I'm doing all these family requirement things. And then after that, I get to focus back on this house and basically going back to Space Constitution, which is what I'm really, really excited about. I'm sorry, my eyes almost popped out there. Really excited about. Anyways, I'll catch you a little bit later. The doggies right here. Have a wonderful night. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys later. Have fun, guys. Bye-bye, guys. Bye-bye.